few council members.
We can go with two. All right, good.
Russell, are you on?
I am.
Okay, I think we can cover it with that group.
Awesome.
This is Carlson.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this Tampa City Council workshop meeting to order. If we could have roll call, please.
Vieira,
Here.
Goods,
Here.
Carlson,
Here.
Dingfelder,
Here.
Petro,
Here.
Miranda,
Here.
Maniscalco.
Here. Thank you very much. I don't have anyone today or this week for the invocation, so we'll go into the Pledge of Allegiance. If you're able to stand, please do. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Mr. Shelby. Mr. Shelby. Is Mr. Shelby on the line?
Yes, he was on the line. We lost him.
All right, I'll give him a second so he can speak. Mr. Shelby, are you on? All right. Well, he generally reads a statement before we go into public comment. Just to give him a few more, another minute here, Madam Clerk, how many people do we have
Good morning.
for? Oh, there he is. Go ahead, Mr. Shelby.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
I'm going to have to reconnect. I don't have any audio, but if you can hear me. Good morning, Council. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. This virtual workshop meeting of the City Council is being held in accordance with the declarations and provisions
And we lost Mr. Shelby again. Just to give him another minute to connect here, Madam Clerk, how many people do we have for public comment?
Yes, Chair. We have 8 that registered to speak, and we have 6 recordings to be played.
All right. Mr. Shelby, are you back on? He's gonna log on. Let's see.
Chair, he's asked to be skipped because he has to sign back in. So it's entered.
Okay. All right. So we'll go to public comment. If you'd like to begin, I'll keep time 3 minutes per each speaker. Again, I have a timer, and you can go ahead and begin with the first speaker.
Okay, thank you, sir. The first speaker I have is Roselle Coffey. If you could hear me, please unmute your line. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, my name is Roselle Coffey. I'm not that clear of mind right now in lieu of everything that's going on in America. There's not much to say, and I think all of our work speaks clearly for what mindset we're in going forward. As far as staff report 3 goes, I would like to say when reviewing the policies, in the last year, do you believe that TPD has violated any of those policies, let alone the last 4 months? That's all I have to say, and I yield my time.
Thank you very much.
Thank
All
you,
right.
sir.
And before public comment continues, item number 3 is going to be continued. There's a request to continue that item, and we'll get to it to September 24th. So we will not be discussing it today in case folks have not been able to register for public comment and whatnot. So that'll be continued to September 24th, and we'll get that motion done after public comment. And I believe Mr. Shelby is back on. Mr. Shelby, did you want to read your statement?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My apologies for that technical issue. Good morning, City Council. Martin Shelby, the City Council Attorney. This virtual workshop meeting of the City Council is being held in accordance with the declarations and provisions of the Governor's Executive Orders 20-69 and 20-193, as they may be further extended, and the emergency rules of procedure as adopted and amended by the Tampa City Council. It's being conducted by audio teleconferencing only with video presentations. Remote participation, which is referred to by the state of Florida statutes and rules as communications media technology. The public and the citizens of Tampa are able to watch, listen, and view the slides on cable TV and the internet, and written public comment has been distributed to City Council, and live and pre-recorded public comment will be heard at the start of the virtual meeting per Council's motion. And I understand, Mr. Chairman, that there's presently no one at the Tampa Convention Center for public comment. That's
Okay.
it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Yes, sir.
point of order. I think we need a little clarification to the public. I know the final agenda came out a little bit late, and so some might be confused with the draft agenda where number 2 is switched to number 3 now, and vice versa. I believe file EZ 2020-8CH is now item number 3 versus file 2020-8AT. I think those have been switched around. So
Okay.
I'm looking at two different agendas here, and I'm looking at the difference.
Okay, all right, I see here for the diversity numbers. I understand. All right,
Correct.
very good. Thank you very much, sir. All right,
Mr. Chairman,
Madam Clerk,
Martin Shelby, if I may make a recommendation, in case there are people who are tuning in late, when there are motions relating to specific item numbers, if you can identify what the item is, that'll clarify it for the people who are listening by audio only. So thank you.
thank you very much. Madam Clerk, if you'd like to continue with public comment.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The next speaker we have is Rachel Howell. If you could hear me, please unmute your line. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, good morning. My name is Rachel Howell. My comment is going to be on the same topic as Roselle Coffee, but with the news that you won't be discussing it today and you'll be discussing it September 23rd, I will hold my more extended comments until then, but I want to reiterate what Roselle was saying and to just think to yourselves if Tampa PD has upheld these policies within the last couple of months. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next speaker, please.
Yes, the next speaker we have is Matthew Yampolsky. If you could hear me, please unmute your line. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, hi, my name's Matthew Yampolsky. It's clear that some policies aren't going to cut it for the Tampa Police Department. They've made that evident over the last several months. The whole 8 can't wait thing, they can't even do most of those simple tasks. They've been using chemical warfare. They've been using riot gear. It's clear that they can't even follow those simple rules, you know? So I think this is just a farce, honestly. I think it's clear that we actually need to defund, abolish, and restart this whole system. It's clear we need to freeze the TPD's budget, reallocate funds to social safety net programs. And as far as diversity is concerned, we definitely don't need just more cops of color. That's not going to be the solution here. I think that's obvious. I spoke to Councilman Citro's aide yesterday for around 10 minutes, and he told me that it's a public safety concern that we need new safe squad cars. That's a public safety concern. That we need to inflate the budget for the police department for things like that. He also told me that the homeless crisis, the homelessness pandemic that's been going on in Tampa for years is a county problem, and that the city has no control over that. And they aren't going to take any sort of assertive measures to help the homeless problem in Tampa. So it's clear that the priorities of the city do not line up with the priorities of the public. So that's pretty much all I have to say. Yeah, I guess that's it. But you guys really need to like look in the mirrors and like ask yourselves, like, do you guys like have a consciousness? You know, a conscience? Like seriously, it's so painfully obvious and blatant how biased the city has become, and you guys really need to like do something about this, you know? And I really hope, on a personal note, Councilman Miranda, I hope you're like, I know you're not on video this time, but I really hope you're taking this opportunity to listen to the people as opposed to reading like a coupon mailer, like we all saw you do at the last meeting. I hope you're paying attention to your constituents as opposed to like blowing them off. Like, that was a really disrespectful thing that you did at the last meeting, Ms. Miranda. And I hope you can address the public regarding that matter. It was a real spit in the face kind of move. And I hope you can take an opportunity to explain yourself. There's pictures of you all over the internet reading a coupon while public comment was going on regarding the budget of the city of Tampa. So it's clear you don't care about your constituents. It's clear. I yield my time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, next speaker, please.
Yes, sir. The next speaker we have is Jordana Yampolsky. If you could hear me, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, hello. I've called you guys regarding Tampa's use of force policy within the police department. It's very clear that regardless of what policies are in place, the Tampa Police Department has no intention of following them. The current TPD policy on using oleoresin capsaicin spray explicitly prohibits its use as a means of crowd dispersal or to control crowds. We've seen that they use it as so. Use of force by TPD is up 25% since 2017. And that factor excludes the use of chemical sprays. When you include that, it has a 200% increase from 2017. There have been decades of research to prove that an increase in aggressive policing only inflates conflict. We see that in our community every time the police come out. Even when they have procedures and policies in place, they have proven not to be able to follow them when they are using chemical sprays on unarmed and non-dangerous protesters as a means of crowd dispersal. TampaGov.net states that in regards to the 8 Can't Wait initiative, and I quote, "The 8 proposed policies have been in effect for years in the city of Tampa." A report by 10 Tampa Bay, which was published on August 14th of this year, states that a spokesperson for 8 Can't Wait claims the TPD still only meets 5 of the 8 recommended policies. Time and time again, they prove their incompetence by refusing to follow basic, non-debatable policies like 8 Can't Wait, like with the unprovoked murder of Jonas Joseph by TPD when they shot him 62 times out of 120 rounds into his vehicle. 8 Can't Wait wasn't a concession, and it was supposed to be an immediate initiative, and Jane Castor and Brian Dugan have failed completely. In regards to what is being done about diversity in our department, hiring more Black cops won't stop cops from shooting Black people. Because of the inherently racist system that is policing, we will never stop the murder of Black people and other people of color by police until we abolish the police. Thank you. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Yes, thank you. The next speaker we have is Brooke Bonsack. If you could hear me, please unmute your line. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, Councilman. Thank you for meeting with us today. I would like to address the use of force policy. Just a little anecdote about some of the ways that TPD has not been following it. I was, one of the probably hundreds of, maybe thousands of protesters. They pepper sprayed as a use of dispersal, whereas they're only supposed to use it on a case-by-case basis as they're making an arrest and someone's being resistant. And that way they can actually monitor the person's health, make sure they're not having a bad reaction because these are dangerous chemicals. In addition, I was one of the 67 people who were arrested on June 2nd when we were simply walking around downtown, admittedly in the street, but that was it. Chief Dugan said we were lied about what we were doing and all that, but it was part of a very, very peaceful protest. And for that, they surrounded us, they tear gassed us, they shot at us, and then I was arrested. And oh, and by the way, they removed all of our masks and it took us to a crowded jail and in crowded paddy wagons, and then I contracted COVID. So I can't prove I got it from that incident, but I mean, they did remove my mask and I was certainly not social distancing. So I would like that any policies that be put in place today or reviewed today, if it is at all possible, please have an eye for any kind of accountability that can be implemented to actually give these policies some teeth, because we know they're not going to follow them no matter what it is. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Yes, the next speaker we have is Justin Coffey. If you could hear me, please unmute your line. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Go ahead.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Mr. Chairman, City Council members, thank you for recognizing the people here today to discuss this most important topic. Like others before me, I do not have much to say and I'll get straight to it. So I'd like to start off by, I motion for item number 3 to be moved forward to an earlier date if possible. I believe that September 24th is too far away for the amount of urgency that this topic is demanding. If we are aware of what was going on yesterday, we've seen a lot of athletes stand in solidarity to show that there is nothing more important than addressing injustice immediately. there's nothing more important we can talk about or do. And I think that that is very important. I think it is very moving. And this is how we have to conduct ourselves. I think that we can skip a lot of the procedural things and focus on what's important. So I motion to move item 3. To be more specific, because I know there's some confusion on the item numbers, it's the item which concerns the recommendations of the Obama 21st Century Task Force recommendations. And I would like to also mention again that if the TPD has been in any violation of these recommendations or policies, that should be addressed. And with that, I yield my time.
Thank you very much. All right, do we have any more live speakers?
Chair, no, we do not. I do want to note that we have 2 others that registered but did not show up online. And their names are Shiv Shukla and Jordina Cummins. And I will proceed with the voice recordings.
All right, go ahead. And how many of those do we have?
6.
Yes, hello, Tampa City Council. My name is Charles Patino. My address is 1313 West Carissa Court. My comment today would be regarding the police chief and the painting that they did on the streets. There are rules set up in our country, and the police and the sheriffs and the government are the people who are supposed to enforce those rules. So I don't like how the leaders of this were texting each other, and even though they didn't have the proper paperwork, they still went ahead and painted it, even though they did not have legal permission yet. They need to be made an example of. You cannot do what you want just because you work for law enforcement. Just like I don't know how many times I've seen a Karen with a little sheriff sticker on the back of her car, and she's just speeding, but yet the cop pulls somebody else over. I've seen that many, many times. So if we're going to have these people enforcing our laws, we should have people of quality. And I think you guys need to fire the police chief and find somebody who is hopefully a little more educated and more qualified to lead, preferably with maybe a master's or even a doctorate. I know that that's far out there to have law enforcement that are truly educated, but that would be my suggestion. Have a great day. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Grant. I'm at 916 East Emma Street. I'm one of the 7 who was wrongfully arrested on August 8th for painting a rainbow mural. You all know how hypocritical it was to arrest us while allowing the Back the Blue people to get away scot-free. The police saw them spitting on us, knocking phones out of our hands, being very aggressive with us on a couple different occasions, and did nothing. Completely hypocritical. I asked right away if my handcuffs could be loosened since they were put on extremely unnecessarily tight. They were not. We just asked for the window to be put down while we were sitting in the back of the hot car while they brutalized other protesters. That wasn't done. The whole process going into the jail is completely dehumanizing. Hopefully you all have read the Tampa Bay Times article by now talking about one of my friends getting beat and a couple other ones getting molested. Something needs to be done about that. I would love to be giving this comment in public tomorrow morning. Unfortunately, I'll be working. I'll be delivering produce for a Simpler Place Farms. If y'all trying to get some fresh local produce. If you want to know my other employer, you can go ahead and look on Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office website. They list all our public information, all our private information there. That's something else you might want to look into. So my colleagues will be hitting you with the facts. I'm going to go for the emotional appeal. Y'all aren't completely different from the police and the jailers in the sense that you do have to see us as less than. I won't say subhuman, but less than. To ignore what we're saying. You know, you have to see us as just an angry mob of kids. So you don't have to listen. Now I know all of our worldviews are shaped by our past experiences and who we're currently interacting with. I know you all have ties to the police community and the PBA, so I don't expect you to magically flip all your viewpoints overnight. However, I do expect you to take the time to sit down and listen to what we have to say. Before returning to the US a few years ago, I taught English in Taiwan for 6 years, mostly first and second graders. And in my last week of And I told all my classes that I learned so much more from them than they ever learned from me. And it blew their minds. Kids aren't used to hearing that from adults, right?
My name is Joseph McLennan. I reside in Sulphur Springs, Florida. I'm calling to address Staff Report 3 today. While I think it's a good idea to compare our use of force policies to the Obama recommendation, I believe there are three main issues with this. Many of these recommendations from the DOJ report are too ambiguous and leaves room for error in implementation. The second issue that comes to mind is that if we're going to use these recommendations as a measuring stick, we should also look at the recommendations surrounding the use of force policies. One of these that I know the public has been loud in support for is the use of independent and third-party investigators for situations in which death or injury occur to victims of police brutality. I think of Jonas Joseph in this case and how controversial that currently is in Tampa. My third and biggest issue is that there isn't legitimate accountability for our police force right now. In the past several months, they've broken many of their own current policies, such as indiscriminate use of pepper spray, searching out and arresting violators of the law, which they aren't doing for Jay Passmore, and prosecuting the man who hit her with his truck. And another policy that they've broken is using force only after all other means of securing compliance has failed. Over these past couple months, I've witnessed multiple ambushes from the bike squad that begin and end with violence in the form of pepper spraying, tackling, and holding people against asphalt. This also goes for the plainclothes unit, which is being used for targeted arrest of peaceful protesters and for spying purposes. On the 4th of July, the protest, an undercover cop was caught videotaping protesters and then sprinted to an unmarked vehicle when people realized what he was doing. This is a bunch of college kids. Why are we wasting resources like this? Why are we paying that man probably close to 6 figures to spy on a bunch of 20-year-olds peacefully protesting? This is not how you build civilian trust. We not only need new policy, we need specific and measurable punishment for when these policies are breached. It's not enough to create policies if they aren't listening to their current policies right now. We need accountability and we need transparency. Thank you.
My name is Mabel Pelias, and I live at 2865 Lakeside Commons Drive, Tampa, Florida 33613. I am tired of police officers not serving their true purpose, which is protecting all of Tampa citizens. Our tax dollars goes to them for what? So they can brutally hurt peaceful protesters and protect the citizens who back the blue, which is used to refer to police officers. They don't follow their own policies. They don't de-escalate. They don't try to do anything. They just use immediate force, or they brutally hurt peaceful protesters or other people. They also don't need all that money or more money in all those trainings. They need to be held accountable for their actions. Take away their paychecks, retirement. Truly do something about this community. We no longer feel safe, and we don't want Castor's budget. We don't want to increase the police budget by $13 million. What about justice for Jonas Joseph and Andrew Joseph III, who were brutally killed by TPD? They deserve justice. Those police officers should be taken out of the police force. They should no longer be protecting, and I'm using quotes for that, our communities. Do something good for our communities, and please do not increase the budget for police, for the Tampa Police Department. And please truly think about what you're going to do to hold these police officers accountable. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Sophia. I live in Silver Springs. I want to thank the councilman and staff for your patience as those of us who don't normally participate in the democratic process so locally, like myself, learn to do so. I know you've been getting calls and emails about our goals in relation to reallocating funds, and I hope you remain patient and open to new ideas as we find specific policies to bring forward. I want to talk to you today about Staff Report 3. The use of force policy that President Obama advocated for is very broad, but it states that trust is essential in democracy. It makes the point that citizens are more likely to obey the law if they trust that it is just and trust that it is being enforced justly. In fact, this document is only about 110 pages long, but it mentions the word trust 114 times. Tampa Police Department's policies only mention trust in the same sense of the word 11 times. TPD's policies are 1,040 pages long. Reading through their policies, they seem to be written reactively to protect officers rather than proactively to protect officers and the citizens they are supposed to be guarding. So first, I want to urge the council to help the Tampa Police Department move in the direction of the federally recommended guidelines. I also think it's important to acknowledge that policy is just policy, right? Nicer words won't really fix the public trust problem that I've seen laid bare this summer. There have been multiple instances of TPD abusing the public's trust. On July 4th, they had plainclothes officers attend and film peaceful protests so that they could target and arrest the organizers. When they did come in to arrest the organizers, they used more than the amount of force necessary to achieve compliance. They used pepper spray indiscriminately, which is expressly forbidden according to their own policies. The policies also state that they're supposed to use the spray to safely arrest and detain subjects, not as crowd control, which is exactly what they did. Earlier, at the same July 4th protest, a car drove through the crowd but didn't injure anyone. TPD did not search out and arrest this man who was caught on camera until nearly 2 months later. From the public's point of view, it looks like it took the earlier hit and run of Jay Passamore getting national attention, a nationally recognized civil rights lawyer, for TPD to even charge the 4th of July driver with reckless driving. And speaking of Jay, they were at a peaceful protest when a man stepped in front of them and stopped short, and they lightly pushed him forward. This incident was also caught on camera, but TPD found fault in Jay's actions and had them in handcuffs that same night. Again, from the public's point of view, doesn't look like TPD is enforcing the law impartially or protecting all citizens in the lawful exercise of civil rights. So while I'm asking you to adopt President Obama's policies, going forward, I'm also urging you to take note of instances like this and how they break TPD's already existing policies and in turn break public trust. Thank you.
Hi, this is Tatiana Morales again. My previous voicemail got cut short. What I was saying was that we need to immediately fire our police officers that have any excessive force complaints. We need no hiring of new officers or replacement of fired or resigned officers because we need to reduce the amount of police that are in our city, considering that 2,000 people marched down Bayshore, and we're saying that there is a problem with policing in our city. We need to ban police contracting for nonprofits and institutions, a ban on city candidates taking money from police unions, and stop accepting union funds because it is a clear conflict of interest, as in our police chief. Our mayor is the former police chief taking funds from her own separate nonprofits. We also demand the rights of protesters be respected and protected, and there be no abuse of powers, such as violations of property should never be equated with a violation of human life. The local and city officials need to ensure that there are no abuse of powers, the use of chemical warfare, lethal force on peaceful protesting. And we need to also, due to COVID and the concerns that we're having there, is we need to release all the people held as on pretrial and parole violations, because they're only going to go into our prison system to get sick of COVID and die, which is already happening at the Orient jail, that we need to start addressing these issues. We also need to repeal the current loitering laws and code violations that are used to disproportionately target people of color. And overall, we need to implement a restorative justice committee, either run by the city council or by the mayor's office as an independent agency, to create restorative justice policies and procedures that actually deal with the systemic roots of crime and not just send cops that are undertrained for those systemic issues. All these things are to say that there's a lot of issues going on, and we do not need a raise for the current police force. There is no need constantly paying millions and millions and millions into a budget, into a city budget that has no money allocated toward affordable housing, nothing to actually protect the citizens and help deal with the issues that are going to make Tampa a more marginalized and distraught location. Thank you for your time, and fire Police Chief Dugan, and make sure that there's a sworn officer cap at 900 officers. At 900 officers, Tampa should be fine. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chair. That concludes the public comments portion of the agenda.
Thank you very much. Before we begin, I'd just like to make note that at around 11, Councilmember Vieira has just, he has to log off for about 15 minutes regarding a work matter, and then he'll be reconnecting with us. And then, of course, I've already mentioned the continuance of that one item, which Councilmember Goose, would you like to make a motion to continue that item, which was the diversity numbers of TPD for the last 10 years? Would you like to do that at this time?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion requesting it to continue item number 3 from the August 27, 2020 workshop agenda and to add the September 24, 2020 agenda regarding file number EZ 2020-8 CH 10 Police Department to provide a report on diversity numbers for the last 10 years. Thank you, sir.
Second, Citro.
We have a second from Councilmember.
Question on the motion.
Yes, Councilman Dingfelder, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Citro, Mr. Goods for making that. I just wanted to speak to this for a second. I think TPD made a good first start when they responded to our motion, but they provided, and Chief Burkle, I know you're on the line. You guys provided the data as related to some EEO standards that we're not familiar with. I know you guys work with those standards, I'm sure regularly, and your HR people do, but in showing us, you know, how TPD did as related to these these EEO standards, it doesn't really tell us anything. So I think Councilman Goods was correct to request that we see the raw numbers. And at least that way, when we see the raw numbers, we can draw our own conclusions and have a more intelligent conversation. So I support the motion and just wanted to clarify a little bit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Who is this?
Chairman, this is Councilman Goods.
Councilman Goods. All right, go ahead.
I did receive the memorandum from Chief Dugan. Again, what Mr. Dingfelder said, it wasn't very clear what we were asking for, and we were not knowledgeable of this EEOC type guideline. So I did send a memo to all council members and back to Chief Dugan and Chief of Staff asking for more information, and I listened to some various different items in that memo that I think will give the raw numbers and an idea of how the police department operation works. So again, thank you, Mr. Dingfelder, and we'll look for that second.
Thank you very much. We have a motion from Councilman Goods. We have a second from Councilman Citro. Is there any objection to this motion to continue this item to the September 24th workshop? Any objections? Seeing none, hearing none, it's moved by unanimous consent. All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Councilman Goods.
A point of privilege, sir, before you get into your agenda, if you allow me, please, sir.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Sir, in 1971, Congress designated yesterday, August 26th, as Women's Equality Day to commemorate the passage of the 19th Amendment, which guaranteed all women the right to vote. This year is the 100th anniversary of the amendment. Although it did not immediately break down voting barriers for all women, and even today, there's more work to be done. This year particularly is important to recognize achievements of the women's rights movement, as we are seeing more female candidates running for office in 2020, especially with the first African-American woman as a candidate for the Vice President of the United States of America. Every little girl should learn about women's history in America and see themselves represented, and not only during Black History Month. Today, we acknowledge all the women who paved the way. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate that very much. All right, we're going to go into the agenda. We have item number 1, which is Ms. Judy Lisi from the Strat Center with a presentation of about 10 minutes or so. If you would like to begin, Judy Lisi, go ahead. And if you're muted, please unmute yourself.
Okay, all right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Judy Lisi, CEO of the Strat Center, and I thank you for the opportunity to report to you today. I thought it was very important that you understand how the pandemic has affected this important city institution and how we are, the challenges we are facing and how we think we're going to be able to get through them. As you know, for 33 years, the Strat Center has served our community is a premier performing arts and event facility and anchor institution. As one of the first major public-private partnerships in the city of Tampa and under the leadership of the then Mayor Bob Martinez and other visionaries, the Strass Center opened in 1987 and has become one of the leading performing arts centers in the nation. We are a 435,000 square foot facility, and the value now is approximately an $800 million City of Tampa asset. With 5 indoor theaters, a teaching and training conservatory, a permanent outdoor stage on the Riverwalk, the Strass Center is a community hub serving 700,000 people each year and a workforce of more than 500. It's an economic generator, fueling an annual economic impact of more than $130 million a year, including $3 million in local tax revenue. It is a catalyst for tourism and hospitality, driving businesses to local restaurants, hotels, and attracting state, national, and international visitors. It's an essential venue for major national events, for civic community events, and for numerous local cultural organizations. It is a world-class resource for learning and arts education, both on-site and through 52 community partnerships. It is a leader in the industry with one of the country's most important Broadway markets. And last but not least, we are the home for world-class artists from all the performing arts genres in the world. We are calling this time that we are dark our great intermission. But we are not totally shuttered. With input from health advisors at TGH, we've been able to manage some on-site activity, and there are tremendous improvements taking place directly adjacent to our building. We have continued performing arts instruction in dance, theater, and music at our Patel Conservatory. We are a building-wide Verizon wireless infrastructure is being installed to provide superior connectivity. I don't know if everybody knows this, but because of the Super Bowl, we are hosting the nationally televised NFL National Awards Gala, which demands this upgrade of Verizon infrastructure. We host nationally recognized entertainment company. We're using our Performing Arts Center as a production company for a major entertainment company with a major star that will stream globally. And we're hoping to do more of this kind of work while we're dark. The streets around the Strass Center are being realigned to provide improved traffic circulation and make way for the 30 plus story air tower apartment building. Construction is well underway on the 340 unit Mill Creek apartment complex right across the street from us. And expansion and improvements to our Arrival Plaza and Tampa Riverwalk on the southern edge of our campus are moving ahead. However, because of the pandemic, our business and revenue has simply ground to a halt since March 13th. That means we've had no revenue at all since March 13th. Because we are a gathering place, and we're somewhat different from museums and aquariums. We're really more like the stadiums and the arena because we're a mass gathering place. But it's places like ours here and around the country that were the first to close and are going to be the last to open. And we might be like this potentially till late in 2021. A little bit about touring Broadway and why it's so important to us. Broadway, as you know, has been completely shut down, as has touring Broadway. And why is that so important to us? We are one of the major Broadway markets in the United States. We bring in a minimum of 16 major shows a year. That consists of 15 to 30 semi-trucks coming in, hundreds of performing artists here, technical stage crew, business operators for multiple weeks who stay in our hotels, eat in our restaurants, and buy goods and services from our vendors. But more importantly, it's 70% of our earned revenue. And that also fuels our food and beverage funding as well. That actually pays for keeping up the facility and also helping us with subsidy for our other mission-driven arts and education programs. We've had to cut our workforce to the core. We had an amazing workforce of 500 dedicated employees, and we barely have enough now to keep our basic operations and to protect our infrastructure and state-of-the-art facility. We have many complex systems in this $800 million complex that have to be taken care of. So our business model is severely challenged. And one of the issues we have is we can't operate with social distancing because it costs too much to do these shows. So we have to operate at 100% capacity. And that is why it's going to take us so long to be able to reopen. Now, I will tell you how we're looking to get from here to there. We're working with the county. Hopefully we'll get some funding from the CARES Act that will fund our extensive mitigation and health protocols that are going to be essential for us to reopen. Because as you've seen with our sports athletes, our artists are the same way. In order for our artists to be able to be on stage, our musicians, our dancers, they've got to be able to do it in a safe way. And we're working very hard with all of the artists unions in the country to see how we can make that work. But we have to spend a great deal of money to create a safe environment for them and for our 700,000 attendees every year. So we're working with County Administrator Bonnie Wise and her team, Tom Fessler and others, who are helping us work through this, and also with John Bennett with the city. And John is also on our board. However, at some point, because the pandemic is much longer, I think, than any of us anticipated, we know that we probably are going to need support for much longer than we thought. Now, I will say that we did get the PPP loan, and that really has helped us get through to the end of this calendar year. So that's been a really good thing. And frankly, our hope is that after the election, from what we understand, there's going to be another act called the Restart Act that's going to be specifically for businesses like ours that are going to be the last to open. And there might be another opportunity for some continued PPP support, other loans. We're not sure yet. We have to wait till there. But what we do know is we're going to have to find funding from somewhere to get us from where we are today to when we're able to resume what was a very successful operation for earned revenue and really made our Performing Arts Center so strong. So we're not daunted by our challenges. Our Strass Center staff who are with us are working very, very hard on our reopening plan to begin rebuilding our operations. We're working very hard to establish our safety and health protocols. We're working hard to sustain our community-based and general programs, and of course, to preserve our state-of-the-art facility. I personally am working with the Broadway League on reopening Broadway for the road and how that can happen. And Lauren Shepard, who is also, if you have questions for him, he's online today. He is chairing the National Task Force with the Kennedy Center and others of how to reopen our major performing arts centers around the country with health protocols. Our reopening plan includes 3 phases. Phase 1 is reopening the conservatory. We're able to have classes this summer on site. We did not have one COVID incident, I'm glad to report. And they are opening on site this fall. We hope to open our river stage space because it is outside in our food and beverage operation, which is on the Riverwalk. We think we could do that safely. Phase 2, which will happen sometime in the fall, we're trying to produce smaller productions with our local artists. We have wonderful local artists, and we feel we could do some local small shows that we could do with some social distancing. We did just hear, however, that the Florida Orchestra has decided that they cannot perform till at least next year. So And we understand that. We understand why they can't do that. As I said, we're preparing for major activities in conjunction with the Super Bowl. And the most important thing we can do right now is make sure that we gear the Performing Arts Center to be as safe as possible when we do reopen, because people will come to us if they know we're safe. So consistent with national recommendations, our mitigation plan outlines many guiding principles. I'm not going to go through all of them, but this is what we're dealing with and what we're trying to get funding for. Contactless entry and transaction systems, enhanced cleaning in lobbies, theaters, and conservatory spaces, including food and beverage, proper signage and communications, sanitization, and what is a big one is our HVAC filtration system enhancements. In closing, we want to assure you that we are doing our very, very best to keep our Performing Arts Center as relevant as possible, to do as much as we can during this time in a safe way. We're not, excuse me, we're not coming to you for funding right now. With that said, we have to see where this is taking us. At some point, we might have to turn to you for help, but we're not sure yet. It is a city asset. We're happy to do it as the private not-for-profit to do the best we can, but we're watching everything very closely, and I promise you, we will come to you with further updates as we move through this journey. And I thank you very much for all you're doing, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Briefly, are there any questions from council members? Councilman Dingfelder, I know that you're on the STRAS board. Do you want to start it off? Do you have any questions?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Lisi and Julie and Lauren for joining us today. Judy, it's definitely some tough times for you and your staff and all of your performers and your students. We sympathize with you guys, and I hope we can be in a position to help when you do come back, or if you do come back and ask. One of the motions that we have pending over at the CRA is to explore the possibility that the downtown CRA might be of assistance in the future with some emergency funds if you need it. So we'll stay in touch through that, and I'll be your liaison back to the board. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments from council members?
Mr. Chair, this is Carlson. Could I just make a quick statement?
Go ahead, sir.
I just want to thank Ms. Lisi and your board. You've done a fantastic job managing this facility, and the economic impact of it is underestimated in the broad range of industries it supports and helps, and the way it attracts the best and brightest people and the companies that we want to grow and thrive here. And so I look forward to helping you personally and through the city to help bring the stage back open and to make you all even better success in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other?
Chairman?
Yes, sir. Councilman Goode.
Thank you, sir, and for your leadership this morning. I think Mr. Dingfelder kind of took away a little of my thunder on the CRA concept. I think that that might be an avenue if it comes to that point. It is in the downtown CRA, and we just need to make sure we can follow some guidelines. If they need help, to get them help if that's the case, because it is a worldwide attraction. We get some of the best shows here in town. Thank you, sir, and I yield back.
Thank you very much. Any other? All right, I hear no other council members. Thank you very much. We appreciate the presentation. We will now continue with the remainder of the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah.
All right, we move on to the next item. Whomever would like to begin on this item, I believe I heard Burkhoff from TPD. Is that correct?
Hi, Councilman. That's correct.
I believe
right.
I believe the city attorney's office was going to start out with this agenda item, but correct me if I'm wrong. Ursula, were you going to
No,
start
either,
out on?
either way. If the attorney's office would like to begin on this, and then if you want to follow up after that, go ahead. Whomever wishes to begin, if it's the attorneys, go ahead.
Yes, this is Ursula Richardson with the City Attorney's Office. I drafted the report that was requested by the City Council back on June 4th. That report, or the request for a report, was to compare the use of force policies by the Tampa Police Department to the 8 Can't Wait initiatives. And that report was submitted, which sets forth the comparison, and I find that our policies are consistent with the 8 Can't Wait initiatives, and I can answer any questions that you may have about that comparison.
All right. Are there any questions from council members? Councilmember Goods, I believe this was your motion. If you'd like to start it off.
Oh no, actually, it was Dingfelder and Mr. Carlson's motion.
Okay. Councilman Dingfelder.
That is correct.
Yeah, and I do have a question, mainly to Chief Burkall. Thank you, Ursula, for doing a great job as usual. Chief, are you on the line?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. So when this initial memo in response to the 8 Can't Wait came out, my response was positive. I said, oh, this is great that the city already has these policies in force. Albeit the fact that they're kind of scattered all over the place. Some of them are standard SOPs, standard operating procedures, and then others are found in the training manual. As a matter of fact, and at the time back in June, I think, I said, why don't we consolidate these into one location? And when you go on the city website, all you have to do is say use of force, and they'll pop right up. Or maybe it should be better yet, I think it should be a category in the TPD website, right next to maybe Citizens Review Board or whatever, the use of force. So I just went on the city's website to see if there's been any improvements. There's nothing there on the website that says use of force on the TPD cover page. But then when I typed in the word search, use of force, it took me to an 8 Can't Wait sort of summary with a lot of links, which is kind of like the memo we have. So the suggestion I would make respectfully, Chief, is that whoever does your website just includes a specific line item that says use of force. And the reason I think it's important is twofold. Number one, I think when the community has a question about use of force, maybe they feel like somebody's been abused, or maybe they're just curious, it would be very easy for them to find without any search engines. And number two, if your officers have a question about use of force, I think, and it might be a very urgent question about use of force, maybe they too could just go on the website and see it as something that pops up right away, as opposed to, trying to find 8 different policies. So anyway, that's just my friendly suggestion. And I appreciate all you guys do. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Who else wishes to speak?
Is there a response from Chief Burkall?
Yes, sir, there is. That's actually a great suggestion, and we're working on the external face and improving that. Internally, we use Power DMS, which is a very user-friendly search document for all our policies for the officers, which has easy access through the laptop or through their mobile phone. And they have an external link that we just paid for an upgrade on, and we are in the process of doing exactly what you just said on our external public-facing site. So that is already in the works, and the officers internally now already have a really good system to use. I'd be happy to demonstrate it for you anytime.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any other members of council wish to speak on this item? Any other members of council? I hear none. I hear no one. All right. Is there anything else on this topic? Anything else that needs to be asked or discussed, said, presented, anything? All right, I hear silence. Well, there is silence. Thank you very much. Is there anybody, any other presenter, anybody else speaking on this?
Mr. Chairman.
All right, Councilman Goods.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, sir.
I mean, you preface that for a reason in your tone where you're asking, and I think maybe since we do have the assistant chief on the line, and we had a lot of public comment this morning, maybe he can address some of the things that they're saying and maybe clear up some of the maybe misconceptions or even facts that the public is generating, and that's why Mr. Dinkler and Mr. Carlson brought this motion to light. I think sometimes it's better to get a clear answer than no answer, and I think that's what you're looking for because you're asking council for questions.
All right. Is there anything else?
So if Chief Burkhalter can respond to anything if he'd like to in reference to what some of the public comments were made or what the general public is thinking, or that'd be fine. If not, okay.
All right, anything else?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Just for the record, we do embrace President Obama's task force on 21st century policing, and we do have extensive training in our use of force and the way that we treat people. Our golden rule is to treat everybody with dignity and respect. And the amount of training that we supply, I would encourage, just like Councilman Citro says, is for citizens to come to our Citizens Academy and see the scenario-based training that our officers go through and the decision-making process that they learn. The scenario training that we do on de-escalation started before de-escalation was a hot topic. So we're very innovative. And then on top of that, we are very particular on how we follow up on our use of force. We have a supervisor review, a management review. Under Mayor Castor, when she was the police chief, she created a third independent audit of our quality assurance unit. And then in addition to that, we also have an automated early intervention program on use of force, where this agency was one of the pioneers several decades ago. And we currently now are getting a ton of feedback from the community and adapting as the community evolves, we're evolving. And I know that the mayor's community task force is getting ready to come out with some recommendations, and we're going to be all ears listening and ready to rise to that occasion.
All right. Any response to that? Any other comments before we move on to the next topic? Anything else?
I would just say, thank you, Chief Burkhalter, for being able to share those with the public.
Thank you very much. All right. We will go on to the next item. Of course, we saw earlier in the agenda that we continued one item to the September 24th workshop. So we go on to the next item regarding affordable housing and whatnot, and we have a PowerPoint discussion on that, or PowerPoint presentation on that.
Good morning, Chair Maniscalco. Carol Post here.
All right, good morning.
Can you all hear? Good morning. I'm the Administrator for Development and Economic Opportunity. I'm joined this morning by Vanessa McCleary, the Manager of our Housing and Community Development Group. And this morning we have actually two presentations that are intended to be responsive to several recent council resolutions. And I appreciate that council has helped adjust and move some of these resolutions around in terms of their response dates so that they all coincide here and we can present a comprehensive response. As such, what we're looking to do is present one presentation that would be an overall affordable housing strategy update. That will be responsive to 4 separate but related resolutions, and it will also give the council and the public an opportunity to see the progress we've made on the mayor's affordable housing strategic objectives. The second presentation is a comprehensive update on the city's urban infill project that commenced in 2018, and that presentation will be responsive to a recent request by council for an update on the contract, but we thought it would be an opportune time as that program is winding down to give a state of the report, if you will, across the entire program. So we have a lot to cover, but I appreciate if you'll indulge us somewhat to give these comprehensive presentations. Each one will be about 15 minutes, and we'll take a pause between them so that we can invite for discussion and feedback. But that's our plan for this morning. So we can jump right in. The first presentation is an update on the 4 resolutions that were related to affordable housing. And as I said, we wanted to dig a bit deeper and provide an overall housing affordability strategy response. So next slide, please. This gives a summary of the 4 resolutions that we'll be addressing this morning. I won't go into the details of them, but as you can see, in November of 2019, there were motions made around tools that could help the city fundraise to drive private funds and support toward affordable housing, as well as an inquiry around land banking as a tool. Later in December, there was questions raised about our incentive options and how those drive and influence affordable housing. And then in February, there was a question around zoning for small lots. The good news is that all of these notions are actually integrated into our affordable housing strategy. And so as we present the update on the Mayor's Advisory Report, you'll see them interwoven, and I'll call them out as we get to each one, and the conclusion will be able to be responsive to each of them. Next slide. The Mayor's Housing Affordability Advisory Report was issued on February 12th. A number of the City Council members were in attendance that day. I think it was one of the last times that we were all able to gather in public. It was a very proud moment for us to release that report. The report reflected the work of about 20 members of our community and a lot of public input that was received as well. That group was co-chaired by Bishop Dr. Tom Scott, Tyler Hudson, and Bamitra Simmons. They did an excellent job at facilitating very robust discussions about how the city could tackle its affordable housing challenges. And so you can see just an outline here of the major objectives that were set forth, and we intend to present some details about where we stand with delivering on those objectives. Next slide. And I think you can jump forward from that slide as well. Thank you. So the housing affordability team and the report is, all of this information is available online. Obviously the detail, the report itself is online, but also the meeting minutes, the agendas, all of the materials that comprised and developed into the report are all part of our Transforming Tampa's Tomorrow website. So if anyone wants to delve deeper into this, all of that information is transparently available. What the report resulted in for at the high level were 3 key sectors, if you will, of recommendations. The drivers around the housing supply and the programs that drive affordable housing, policy and alignment, and how we can influence the development of more affordable housing, and then always sort of a priority to our efforts is the community outreach and engagement piece. So we'll step through each one and provide an update on where we are. Next slide. So we'll start with talking about housing supply and programs. It goes without saying, but I think it was important for this group to say that there's really, at its most basic, is that demand was outdriving supply. And so in order to create a greater balance, we needed to tackle ways to increase supply and the programs that support that. So the report reflects, and the advisory team settled on we wanted to have a singular target. We wanted to really be able to frame this rather than saying we just need sort of more housing. Well, how much housing do we really need? There's some data in the report that reflects what the driving demand is and some empirical information around that. As that was all digested, the team settled on a target of 10,000 new housing units completed by 2027. And I'll make a couple of notes about that. Housing unit could be a single family or a rental unit. And very much so, our intentions are that these targets are not just about the supply that the city sources. As we know, the city is a conduit for federal funds and other support funds that help drive the addition of affordable housing. But more and more, the private market is adding to this. And so our target is inclusive of both our public sector contributions as well as the private sector additions. And we feel that the path that the city can take to influence the private sector is one of the most critical directions that we see ahead of us. So to be able to grow these numbers, the rationale for the 10,000 is really based on setting an achievable but an ambitious goal. Currently, the city produces, or over the past several years, is involved in helping to produce about 900 units a year. And that is, again, as a conduit for funds that flow through the city. So our desire is to increase that by about 38%. That would add about 350 new units a year to achieve that 10,000 additional by 2027. And again, that would be contributed by the city's increasing its support and programming, but also relying on the private sector to join along with solving this challenge. Next slide. In addition to adding new units, the group very much focused on the maintenance and preservation of existing housing units. And as you can see, likewise, there was a target set to ensure that we're able to put our resources toward maintaining and restoring up to 100 existing housing units annually, like the new unit target that's based on the work that is already done, but provides a bit of a stretch, achievable but ambitious, to ensure that we're upping the production on our assistance out to our existing supply. So with that set as our benchmarks and our targets, we wanted to take a look at where we stand today and what our near horizon looks like. For that, next slide, please. And I'll turn over to Vanessa to give us a brief update on how we stand in starting to hit some of those targets.
So when we are developing affordable housing, you usually have to lay a foundation, and there is time that it takes to bring units online. So currently, we've been working with our nonprofit partners to produce both single-family homes as well as multifamily. So right now, we're working with CDC, Habitat, and East Tampa Business and Civic Association. They are our CHODO organizations, which is Community Housing Development Organizations. And you can see there that they are producing about 34 homes this year. In addition, we have the infill housing project, and we'll go more in detail on the next presentation. But through that program, and that's where we started working with a for-profit developer, we are going to produce at the end of that contract 96 new homes within a 2-year period. And then we have our property disposition program, and that's where we are using the current city's land bank to provide lots free to developers as long as they sell the homes to a low to moderate income family. That one is just really starting to get its legs, and we are working with our real estate division to acquire more property to expand that program, and also to put those lots into a community land trust that would allow them to stay affordable in perpetuity. In terms of multifamily, we've been doing a lot of work, and those projects that you see there, all but one is in the West River area. We worked with the Housing Authority when they developed Encore for multifamily housing, and now we're working with them on the West River project. These ones that you see on here will come online. Some will be this year, and then the others will be next year. In addition, we're working with another developer who is going to do 102 units of senior housing in East Tampa. Next slide, please. So as we are looking at affordable housing, one of the things that the report called for was that we also look at innovative projects. So we continue to work towards multifamily housing, but we're also working on a couple of pilots right now. Connie Burton has been talking about container homes, and so we've helped her to identify a lot, and we're moving forward. That image that you see there is the container home that she is planning to put on a lot that we'll be providing. We're also working with another group to do a tiny home project. These are both pilots because as we are going through this process with them, we are looking at the zoning requirements and regulatory issues that may arise so we can make recommendations for changes to make the process smoother when we roll it out as a full new method for producing affordable housing. Next slide.
Thanks, Vanessa. So you can see we have a lot of irons in the fire already, which is very positive, but we know that it's not enough. And so our strategy is intended to turn over every rock, literally, and ensure that we are making highest and best use out of all of our assets. So one additional part of our strategy is to revisit the housing assets that we, or the real property assets that we currently hold title to, and assess how they could be repurposed for the affordable housing challenge. In doing that, as you can, we have been able to, and this actually had not been previously done, we've mapped all of our real estate assets so that we can identify where they are, how they factor into the community or the location that they are in, what the zoning is, what the size and dimensions of each lot and each parcel are, what they're proximate to, and so on, and a wide range of assessments that will enable us to identify those that would be most suitable for housing affordability projects. And we think with so many of these things, there's no one size fits all. So we're not looking to have just a singular approach to how we use these assets, but rather be selective and targeted for how each parcel in each community and literally down to the neighborhood can best serve in its location. So we're revisiting that notion. An additional layer is revisiting the opportunity zones that exist across the city. There are 22 zones across the city of Tampa. There's only 2 of them that have really been tapped in earnest for the benefit that can be derived as an opportunity zone. We think there's still much more potential. I think you're hearing a lot more about this as new investment opportunities are surfacing. So we'd like to get back into the business of understanding what our opportunity zones look like, where they're located, and how we could market them for an appropriate investment that can serve each of the respective communities. And then the last piece for our housing asset strategy is really refocusing on driving infill housing. As Vanessa referred to, we've had the infill housing program with Domain, CDC, and Habitat for Humanity. That will be our second presentation where we'll give a deep dive on how that program unfolded, what results we've seen, and how we're going to learn from it moving forward with some potential future plans. So let me turn to next slide, and we'll address 2 of the 4 resolutions moving forward. So those 2 resolutions that surfaced in November had to do with inquiries around private fundraising and land banking. And I'm happy to say we have very positive progress on both of those. So just recently, we established a 501c3 that will exist on behalf of the city to be its philanthropic arm, and it will also serve to govern and guide the community land trust, which will essentially serve as a land bank in the context of how the request or the inquiry was made. The 501c3 is in the form of One Tampa. So you've heard about One Tampa these past several months. It was actually initiated and became the mechanism that we used to enable all of our COVID relief programs. And so, you know, there's the necessity of doing that was fortuitous for us. If there's any silver linings that could come out of COVID, we were able to spin that group up very quickly in that organization. And now here it is, and we'll be able to repurpose it and retool it so that it can be a long-term tool to be drive private investment and be a philanthropic arm for and on behalf of the city. And as I said, it will also be the mechanism to initiate and govern the community land trust, which is on our near horizon as well. So next slide. And I think you can see there the one point not to overlook is that our 501c3 can also be a tool for even further longer term initiatives such as a housing trust fund, which was also recommended in our advisory report. That's something that we will see down the future road. So let me just talk about community land trust for a moment. So the community land trust is a very common tool. It's used across the country, in many cases extremely successfully, to provide a mechanism to both drive and influence affordable housing development, but also to maintain it and ensure that it sustains as affordable over time. This is a visual that represents kind of how it works and why it works, but the upshot, without getting too into the weeds, is that the buyers of the home are paying for the building. They do not pay for the underlying land. The community land trust retains title to all of the land that it has title to, and it conveys the property that's sitting on the land. So right out of the gate, you take out the land cost, which really drives affordability tremendously. So the buyer buys the building. The good side of this is that the buyer can live in, reside, adapt, modify. It looks and feels just like home ownership, which is what you want to have, and to provide that sense of owner occupancy responsibility. The CLT governs that. There are certain standards that apply to it. But more importantly is that at resale, there's a formula that applies to the purchase and sale that enables a buyer to yield a return so that, again, you get to enjoy the benefit of home ownership. But it has caps and it has some maximums so that the parcels can stay, the homes can stay affordable for future buyers, typically through a 99-year ground lease. And that's really what we're trying to achieve. I think we've had great success in beginning to really build some affordable housing critical mass. And most of what you'll hear about in our next presentation has similar sale and income restrictions. But at some point, those restrictions fall away. And as neighborhoods are rising, which is a positive thing, the land values and the property values start to rise. And then suddenly what was affordable becomes no longer affordable. And that's the epidemic problem is how do you maintain the affordability over time? That's where the community land trusts have really proven to be successful. Next slide. As I said, we recognized, and the advisory team recognized, that these community land trusts are not something new. Unfortunately, Tampa is not going to be trailblazing here, but they are proven, and I'll let Vanessa just speak briefly about some experience she's had with them just across with our neighbors and around the country.
So community land trusts, like she was saying, have been around for a while. And as you can see, the first one was in Albany, Georgia, 50 years ago. When I was in North Carolina, which was over 15 years ago, community land trusts were being used there to help house the homeless as well as to provide affordable housing. They are an alternative to renting. They're not an alternative to home ownership. And what I mean by that is that this is to help drive down the cost to make it more affordable to renters. But anybody that can afford to purchase a home on the market should really go through the traditional home ownership route where they don't have these kind of restrictions. This is another tool that we believe is going to be a very valuable one in our toolbox like what Carol was saying, because we do have these rising costs, and we want to make sure that there are affordable housing options throughout the city. So we will be looking to acquire property that is near to transportation hubs that we can turn into, we can add to the land trust so that that place will always be affordable and we can mix up the incomes throughout our community. As you look at the map, you'll see that land trusts are, there are 21 land trusts in Florida. Bright Community Trust, which is one of the more familiar ones in our area in Pinellas County, Hannibal Square, and the newest one is the Regional Housing Trust in Orlando. So they are popping up all over. We're not blazing a trail, but we're going to do it better.
Yes, for sure. Thanks, Vanessa. Okay, next slide. We're going to move on then. So you see there's a lot of tools that we're putting in the toolkit for adding units and maintaining units and thinking outside the box somewhat. But we also know that we need to ensure that our policies and our protocols here align to support that agenda. So next slide. One of the major aspects of the advisory team's recommendations had to do with policy alignment. There are a number of code and zoning recommendations that are set forth in the report. I've summarized some of them here, and we won't go into these details, but these are all efforts that now we are working on across our planning and development team, our legal team, and others. Sustainability and resilience has become a big player in this as well, where we can, mobility, transportation, it sort of touches everybody, but you can see how we're looking to create a harmony between what our code and zoning provisions are, and that they support and drive and positively influence the development of affordable housing. So some of it has to do with density, and some of these matters will actually come before the council in the coming months. We have a growth management workshop that will be discussing some of the opportunities around changes to our zoning that will help positively influence affordable housing. We've often heard how the cost of affordable housing can be driven by some of the peripheral supports like parking and other matters, impact fees and the like, all of which to a large extent we can control and influence, and certainly with the council's support and input, we can help shape a code forum that is consistent with what we're trying to achieve for affordable housing. Next slide. One thing in particular that we did want to focus on this morning was around the incentive options. It was, again, one of the resolutions that was passed in December, inquiring around how our incentive options influence and whether they're working or not working. We've already dug into that pretty actively. I'll let Vanessa share with you where we are in re-examining how our incentive options are driving affordable housing.
So working with my counterparts in planning and development, we've been looking at the incentives that currently exist and how to strengthen the use of them to push affordable housing. So one of the first things we're looking at is creating a standalone provision for affordable housing. So we're defining affordable housing so it's clear to everyone. We're working on materials that will help the public to understand how to access these different incentives. And then we're also looking at the incentives. So when we allow for density bonuses, making sure that we put restrictions on the property that's using those bonuses so that those additional units are made affordable to low and moderate income families. Same thing with the reducing the parking requirements. And then some new things that we're looking at, and these are recommendations right now that we're working on, but looking at on infill properties, we do sidewalks that don't go anywhere. And putting in those sidewalks can be an additional cost, and it also isn't very attractive to the neighborhood when the other sides of the property don't have sidewalks. So just looking at that as a waiver to help reduce costs. Also looking at the setback requirements, because on some of these blocks, there's maybe one or two homes, and you put the infill, and depending on that setback, it determines the size of the house. And so just looking at how we can do some modifications there. And then one of the big costs that we hear when it comes to affordable housing is the cost of trees. We have these vacant lots where trees have been allowed to grow up over years. And when you take them out to build the home, we had one project where the cost of the trees was over $50,000. Well, that's $50,000 if they didn't put it towards the trees would make the home affordable. So just looking at how we can get creative with incentives that we can use to help make affordable housing more feasible, because, I mean, the cost has to be covered somehow, and we don't have a lot of grant dollars to do that. And then as we move on to the next page, these are, we've been looking at the zoning and tiny lots, small lots. And so we, real estate provided us with a list of economic remainder properties, which are small lots left over from when we did right-of-way acquisitions. And the page that you're looking at now, one of them is a large property that we acquired, and we're looking to do a tiny home village. The reason for doing a tiny home village on that location is because there are a lot of trees on that property, and removing those trees would be cost prohibitive. It's also a very beautiful lot with the trees. So with the tiny homes, we can do a multifamily project with multiple tiny homes that would be available for rental. And then the other lot that you're looking at, that is the one that we are working with Connie Burton on, and that would be the pilot container home property. And you can see again, there's a beautiful tree, and by being able to use this non-traditional home, it allows us to fit it on the lot and still meet the setback requirements.
Okay, next slide. So with respect to the land development code and changes, that gives you a bit of a window into those matters that concern affordable housing, but LDC requests surfaced up in two other advisory reports, transportation and development services. And as such, they join a number of other requests concerning updating and refreshing our land development code. I think I've spoken with most all of you now to know that we have put together a pretty comprehensive effort at aligning all of the various recommendations that have surfaced over the past now almost a year, and aligning those together with recommendations that have existed for some time by staff, others that have surfaced by City Council over the recent past and some further back, and wanting to approach it in a comprehensive way. So we're working very closely with Gina Grimes' office and others to ensure that we are taking a very process-oriented approach and to do this so that we are approaching it in a harmonious way that will be comprehensive. And I just mentioned this, we're going to take a phased approach. The idea is obviously sort of start with some of the simple things that make sense to everyone. We know that LDC matters can be very sensitive and controversial, and there's sort of no right answer often. But in some cases it is, like when, for example, a code says you have to do something in a certain number of days, and sometimes it's calendar days and sometimes it's business days, and some of those things we can unify and simplify. So not to get too into the weeds on that, but coming in the fall, we got a bit delayed because of COVID and some of the council meetings, as you all know, getting shifted. But we're going to be back in the fall with what we've put together as phase one, relatively mainstream, if you will, a set of recommendations, about 9 or 10, that will help just simplify and unify some of the code references, and then some of what Vanessa just referred to and other more substantive changes will come forward in future phases, all of which will be done with a substantial amount of process and outreach to enable input before we get to final recommendation. So next slide. One other component is that none of this can happen in a vacuum, and certainly the City Council is our primary partner in driving LDC changes, but there are other partners. We've already begun discussions with the county, with the Planning Commission, MPO, and others, and then that's relative to any LDC changes, but relative to the housing affordability changes and our progress and strategy, certainly AHAC is actively, very actively involved. And then just to reference that, the CARES Act and some of the challenges that we're facing right now in terms of homelessness, eviction threats, all of those things are somewhat shaping our strategy. They're not going to get us off course. Our essential strategy remains intact, but it goes without saying that has created a new challenge for us, in which case, as you all know, we're diverting much of our resources and time to ensure that those immediate and emergency needs are shored up. So next slide and last chapter is around community outreach and engagement. And next slide, Vanessa does that, and her team, they're extraordinary. They do the heavy lifting on this, so I will let her just close us out with some of the highlights of changes and improvements that are being made to increase engagement and outreach to our community and simplifying what it takes to take advantage of some of our programs.
So one of the things we know is that we have a lot of great programs, but if the community doesn't know about them, it doesn't really mean anything. So we have been expanding our outreach. You know that we were having the community resource fairs, which were very popular. Unfortunately, they've been cut because of COVID. So we've been working on our online presence. We're actually looking to upgrade our website. We are creating how-to videos that show people how to actually go through the application process for our programs. We've expanded our outreach to the Hispanic community and to others. We're using the radio more. We're also expanding the programs that the housing counseling agencies provide, making sure that they have different hours, different methods that they can be reached so that they can assist families. As we've been working with the relief efforts and doing the rental assistance and mortgage assistance, we've used the housing counseling agencies to not only process those applications, but through that, they're making connections with families to help them with their financial management. Next slide. So we're also looking at restructuring our division to make sure that we can meet the community needs. Like I said, we are redesigning the website, making it more user-friendly, adding more pictures and diagrams and videos. And we've also started connecting with the business community. We had the virtual business contractor event where we were reaching out to the construction industry to make them aware of how they could get involved with affordable housing, that it didn't necessarily have to just be stroking a check, but they could lend their buying power, they could assist with providing technical assistance, labor, and also with funding. So that event was really successful. We had more people signing up for it than we had space on our Zoom grant, our Zoom window. So we are looking to do that again. We'll probably do those events quarterly. And then we are just starting to introduce our business and coffee, and that's when we're going out to the business community with our housing counseling agencies, talking to them about how there are programs that can help their employees. And through this, we're hoping that we will engage the business community to get more involved in affordable housing. Next slide. We are also expanding our, next slide, there we go, educational programs, because we do know that as these prices are rising, we don't want to lose any of our legacy residents, and we want to mitigate gentrification and displacement. So we have programs like the Community Assistance Program and the Stormwater Hardship, but we're also working with the Property Appraiser's Office and tax assessors to put on workshops to let people know that our homeowners, different discounts that they can get on their property taxes. We have a huge issue with estate properties and folks not knowing how to properly transfer. So we're working with Stetson University to develop some will and estate planning classes. Our owner-occupied rehab program, we added to that so that now if a home is beyond what can be repaired, we actually have a replacement housing option that we will be rolling out. Hopefully next month, we will start on that program. And then through our Human Rights Office, we're looking to update the ordinance, adding income as a protected class and clarifying the enforcement procedures. Next slide. So with all of this, and like I said, with our website, we're looking to add greater transparency and accountability. So we will create dashboards that will show what funding is available, how many applications have been processed, what affordable housing projects, because one of the big things that we hear is that people don't know where there are units available, affordable housing units available. And so through our website, we will have not only the projects that are currently under construction, but ones that we know are coming, and we'll be highlighting those on the website.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a lot, but.
Yeah, next slide. Thank you very much, and thank you, Vanessa. She does an incredible job. I appreciate you indulging us for a bit of a more lengthy presentation, but hopefully it covered a lot of ground. So we're happy to take any questions.
Mr. Chairman. Very much.
Mr. Chair. Miranda.
Oh, okay. Councilman Miranda, did I hear Councilman Citro or Dingfelder as well?
Yes, you did. Citro.
All right, we're going to go Miranda, Citro, Dingfelder, and then Goose. I'm just trying to go down the line in my mind. Go ahead, Councilman Miranda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. Thank you both, to Vanessa and to Carol, for in-depth report. There's so many slides here to look at that is almost not fair to comment because of the amount of work that you all done. It is unbelievable. However, I'm looking at one part of it and the review infill agreement. And I'm looking at the cost of housing in 2014 to 2017, or a 4-year period. And as I look at the Nehemiah project phase 1, the average sale price was $90,000. In 2015, the Beacon Homes was the average sale price $165. And the Nehemiah phase, pardon me?
Councilman Miranda?
Yes.
Pardon the interruption, but we haven't given that presentation yet. That's the next presentation. If you could reserve your inquiry, we certainly could cover that.
All right, then I'll go to the other one then. I'm sorry, I apologize.
No problem at all.
Like I said, there were so many of
I know.
Page and the next page that you've done 5 years work in a couple of months. And when I look at affordable housing, the concept that maybe I was incorrect, would be affordable housing for someone to buy. And I appreciate your efforts that you've done. And looking at page 9 of the Q&A, we're looking at certainly the city had a supported role, and what Tampa Housing Authority did with the city and the boulevard down and main areas, Main Street. And those were, I believe, 740 rental units, which is great. And then we're looking at the city being partners with Tampa Housing Authority. And I'm looking then in the same page on the single family projects of the city of Tampa and different 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of infill projects that we got involved in that totaled 136 units. And I'm a little, not at all disturbed, I'm a little surprised that the preponderance of this one anyway, it's almost 5.5 to 1 rental versus housing units. And those are the things that I remember when campaigning. Most of the questions that were asked on the campaign trail regarding affordable housing was housing that they were going to buy. And there's where I'm leading into. And you all mentioned the tiny homes that were, because of trees and other things, are certainly conducive to that one block or whatever amount of land it is. And the only question I have is, what is the cost per square foot, regular, a metal tiny home being put, or a regular home or a small room being built with the conventional methods of blocks and wood? And these are the things that I like to see in the future, what the costs are per square foot. That's how, when you go to the grocery store, anyway I do, I don't buy by the price. I buy by the ounce, which tells you the amount of price, which gives you the best value for your dollar. And I imagine you're doing the same thing in this area here. So the square footage is what's the cost involved. And I'll hold my other references to when we get to the work that we've done and work that we're looking forward to do and buying of the home, and what the land costs and what the home is and what is affordable and what is not. And those are the questions that I have that I'm asking myself.
Okay. So in terms of, you have to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. So when you're looking at the price per square foot, it's not really the best way to buy a home, because if you look at a tiny home, the price per square foot, it tends to be a lot higher than a full single family home. And people actually do buy according to the price, more so according to their mortgage payment. So when you look at the prices that I was showing you on that one slide, and we'll get back to it, there's usually some sort of subsidy. So there's down payment assistance or something else that makes that home affordable while making sure that the property values within the area stay where they should, so that we're not disproportionately affecting communities. And that's not the right word, but. And then in terms of the number of homes, in terms of single family, those are the ones where we have funding in those projects. There are still quite a few affordable homes that were sold where we provided down payment assistance. This is where we were actually supporting the construction, but we do a lot in terms of supporting the purchase of homes as well. That's not counted here, but I could bring that back at another time.
I understand that part. So then you, square footage doesn't mean anything by the price of the value of the house, just not on the square foot, but on the value of the house?
It does, but the price per square foot also takes into account amenities. So someone wants granite countertops and they want fancy fixtures and those kind of things. So it's really, what can someone afford and what does someone want to buy? Are you interested in a tiny home? Then that would be what you buy. If you're interested in a single family that has some of these different amenities, people are buying on what they need as well as the price per square foot.
No, I understand. I would imagine someone that's married and got 3 or 4 kids are not going to buy a 1-bedroom house. I understand that. So that's what you're alluding to, or somebody who has no kids doesn't want a 6-bedroom house. I understand that. But I'm looking at the price per square foot based on the value of the need of the person who's making the application to buy a home.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be a much longer discussion, so I would
agree with you. So we'll leave it for another day.
And we can go into more detail.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Councilmember Citro, then Dingfelder, then Goose, and then whomever wishes to speak then. Councilman Citro, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Ms. Post, I congratulate you and your team on this report. You've done very well. Just a couple comments and then 2 questions. I'm glad that you have recognized that we need to change our zoning, especially for the smaller homes, where we're seeing that we can get 2 smaller homes on 1 lot unless we tackle our zoning issues now and be prepared for when these homes become available. We might be just spinning our wheels. So thank you for that. I'm also hoping that we're going to be able to get not only affordable, but more workforce housing, especially with the urban core. And I also want to thank you for bringing up the parking. I've been working with several people in the downtown area, especially with Downtown Partnership and other people, hoping that we can change our parking minimums. Maybe we can move that further out into the city as we progress. A couple things, the questions. Are you going to be making mandatory? I noticed we were talking about affordable. We are realizing now that utility payments are a large cost to home ownership. If we can make sure we put solar on these new homes, tankless water heaters and those type of things, I hope we're going to make those mandatory to the builders for these things. My next question, and I'll try and lump them all into one. My next question is, we're going to have 10,000 units proposed by 2027, but with the amount of people moving into the city of Tampa, will that be enough by 2027? And okay, I'll go with those two. Thank you, Ms. Post.
Thank you for the questions. I can just give you a couple of quick responses, and as with any of these, happy to discuss in more detail as needed. You raise a very good point around workforce housing versus affordable housing, and I should definitely emphasize that the advisory team focused on that and actually had really a great deal of dialogue about it. Their intention, and it is set forth in the preamble of the report, affordable housing is a term of art, and it's defined by HUD and others in very high degree of specificity. What our intentions were to focus on housing affordability and not necessarily just the defined term of affordable housing, but to ensure that there is housing affordability across the entire spectrum, depending on what a person or a family's affordability is. And so we really did focus a lot on workforce housing and other terms that are commonly used, but the nature of this report and what we're really trying to drive is a wide spectrum of affordability. So I appreciate you recognizing that. And on utility payments, again, excellent point to raise. As I mentioned at the introduction, so many aspects of our city team are involved in driving affordable housing. Our sustainability and resilience addition has brought some great reflection here around how the infrastructure needs of a home drive the cost up. And we've begun to explore that in terms of how utility costs, stormwater costs, connection for water and wastewater, all of these that drive costs can be addressed in some way. So it's really great to have that be part of the dynamic. And then finally is around whether 10,000 homes by 2027 or units by 2027 is enough. I would bet that the answer is no, that is not going to fully and completely meet the demands of our growing community. I think it will help make an aggressive dent in the demand and to do it rapidly. And again, many of our programs are about the fact that we've had success, but it's been a slow train. And we really want to amp this up. We need to put some of our programs on steroids to accelerate. So will that ultimately solve all of our problems? I don't think so, but I think it will help drive progress. And as I said at the outset, I think this is not just a problem for the city to solve. We need our private sector, our county partners, the housing authorities, so many, and everyone is at the table. So that's our target, and we hope that others are setting some targets as well that will help drive some solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Post. Just one more quick question, and just a ballpark figure. What is the average income levels that we're looking at now, today?
Sorry, in terms of a family of four, I think it's about 70,000.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Post. Thank you,
That
Chair.
was Vanessa, by the way. Any expert questions, go right to Vanessa.
Thank you, Vanessa,
Thank you.
very much for your answer to that question. I do appreciate it. I miss looking at people face to face. So I'm sorry, voices tend to sound the same. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councilman Dingfelder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Dingfelder.
Actually, Councilman Goods was first. I don't know if he wants to go
Okay,
first.
Councilman Good, would like to go before Dingfelder? Go ahead, Councilman
No,
Good.
thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Let me say, good report by staff. I'm glad that the motion I made in reference to land banking, land trust, and this council, we set that forth and the administration heard our call on that issue and also on the affordable housing issue that we started earlier on all of our seats starting 2019. My concerns, a few things. When I look at tiny homes and container homes, I think is a good idea. But what I don't want to see when I look at the screen, it says East Tampa. What I want to make sure, if we're going to go in this venture, that tiny homes and container homes are all in 4 sectors of the city and not just in East Tampa. I want to make sure that if you understand that all of East Tampa is not poor. We have a lot of diverse economics that go on in East Tampa, but I don't want to look at devaluing property as well by saying we're going to redline East Tampa and throw all the tiny homes and container homes in East Tampa. We have to be fair, and we're a city, so everyone has to share the wealth of affordable housing, workforce housing, and tiny homes be in South Tampa, East Tampa, West Tampa, and North Tampa. So I just want to hear your thoughts on that, Ms. Post and Ms. McCleary.
Councilman Goods, it's a great point, and again, we tried to cover as much ground as possible as we could here, but you raise a point that was also a very important topic to the advisory team and something that Vanessa's team is now incorporating, which is decentralizing the impacts of all programs, whether they're, whether the success that some of them have brought to bear, we want to share those across the city. And likewise, where there's unique pilots, we should be trying them in all neighborhoods. So I think we very much support that. To some extent, we recognize where there is greater demand right now, and so some of our focus has been concentrated to meet the most pressing demand, and that tends to be centralized. But our goal is to decentralize these programs and ensure that a wide range of affordability exists across all neighborhoods, across all communities.
I'm hoping that we have a policy that directs that, so we don't get complacent and then we start a red line situation. So I'm hoping that comes forth. My second thing, we talk about our owner-occupied rehab. I'm glad that we're looking at that. I've been talking about that for a while, that I don't believe that it's really working for all folks who really need help with these rooftops, with some of the houses that they've been passed down, and you don't have people that can get loans or have the affordability to do certain things. So I'm hoping that we do revamp that program. That's why I asked for the CRA's rehab program to be totally different from the cities, because I know we do have some state or federal requirements with money that's garnered there. And that's why I asked for the CRA's to have a different type of program so people can be able to fix their homes up, especially when you look at all sectors, but especially in our East Tampa district. That's why I put forth the tree ordinance. We have to clean up the areas to make it economically viable and have, again, that economic drive for that side of town. So I'm hoping that your program will be robust to where it will be able to help more people versus holding up a lot of money back and not being able to help people. So if you can elaborate on that rehab program and how robust you believe it's going to work for us.
Hi, Vanessa McCleary responding. So what we are doing with our owner-occupied rehab program, we are taking it online to make the application processing more efficient through the program that we are in the process of upgrading to right now. Not only would staff be able to see the progress of the application, but the owner would also be able to see where their application is in the process. In addition, we have added the replacement housing program because, as you know, every so often we have homes that are beyond repair. We have one home that right now is leaning, and so we're moving quickly to get the replacement housing program in place to assist that homeowner. It will be a modular home because we can tear down the home and place that modular rather quickly the homeowner would be responsible for their own relocation during that transition, because it's a large outlay, and so we can't include relocation as part of that because we want to help as many people as possible. They would make a small payment that would include us escrowing their homeowners insurance and their taxes to make sure that they don't lose the home to those, and then a small portion towards the principal. And they would then be able to have a home that is decent, safe, sanitary, helps to build up the neighborhood. I don't think I had a slide on there, but we do have what the modular homes look like, and they're beautiful with beautiful amenities. We have shown them to a few potential applicants for the program, just to be sure that it was something the community would be in favor of. And so they were very excited and looking forward to moving forward with it.
And lastly, when we talk about our nonprofits, I see three that were listed: CDC, Habitat, and I believe East Tampa Business Association. How is that coming to getting more nonprofits involved in this process? Because I get calls all the time from different people saying they want to be involved, but they got stringent criteria. How are we coming along with it to get more people involved in building and helping us, especially some of these nonprofits?
So we have a number of, those were the three that were on the slide, but we also work with East Tampa Business and Civic Association, Rebuilding Together Tampa Bay. There's a number of different nonprofits that we work with. And so when it comes to working with nonprofits to build affordable housing, it's responding to an RFP. And so when we put out funding, we just need people to respond. When we did our last CHOTO application, we funded every organization that responded to that RFP because we've been trying to expand. We also do workshops. We have done workshops on how to apply for programs away from an RFP, as well as during the RFP process, we do a workshop where we walk people through the application. We've also told folks, we do a grantsmanship workshop once a year usually in January, where we just help people to understand what is required for an application. We've told them that, we are a public entity, and so if they want to see a past response that was successful, they are welcome to get a copy. And we have emailed out copies of applications. We emailed out the one that Domain did, that CDC has done, that Habitat's done. So we've had some requests, and it's just a matter of them responding.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you very much. Next up, Councilman Dingfelder. Councilmembers Carlson and Vieira, would you like to speak as well?
Yes, when they're done. Thank you.
I can make brief comments at the end. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so we'll go Dingfelder, Carlson, Vieira. Go ahead, Councilmember Dingfelder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Carol and Vanessa, for your presentation. I've got a series of questions. I was trying to take a note of what that was. About a year ago, Ms. Chloe Coney stood in front of us and made a very adamant, sincere, and strong request that we do an affordable housing trust fund. Carol, I know you spoke to it briefly. I didn't hear much in the way of details or plans for that. So I'm going to have about 5 questions, but that's the first one.
So I can just respond to that one. The advisory team did recommend that the city explore developing a housing trust fund like a community land trust. It's a relatively common tool that can be used to help drive positive impacts here, and it is on our horizon. Frankly, it's just something, as we've got, as you can see, many irons in the fire that we've put on a side burner. We feel like the One Tampa 501c3 is up and running and can serve philanthropic and fundraising needs. The Community Land Trust will be done in the coming weeks and will really begin to drive some of our solutioning. And the trust fund or the trust fund that you're referring to, if we're speaking of the same thing that was recommended by the advisory team, would be something that would be down the road for us.
Okay. In regard to the 501c3, it sounds like that's sort of evolving from its original purpose into other positive purposes, which is great. I'm just wondering who sits on the board of that? Does City Council have a representative on that? You know, to help guide it in the future, or is that just administrative appointments and representatives on the nonprofit board?
So the governance is in the works, and I'd be happy to relate some of those details as they come into greater shape. But the formulation of this entity is done pursuant to standard guidance. We have the Gina Grimes' office is assisting in the development of it. And in addition, the Florida Housing Coalition, which was an agreement that came through City Council, has been contracted to help advise us on how we develop and build and establish appropriate governance for the objectives that we have set forth. So we're hoping to engage best practices there, but the details are not yet concluded.
Okay, and if I wasn't subtle enough, I think one of the best practices would be to include a council member on that board. Obviously, we can't have more than one, but we should have at least one. So I hope that's included. Vanessa, you spoke to regulatory incentives that would help affordable housing, and I think that's great. But I think that we have to be really careful because it could be a slippery slope that we create a whole slew of regulatory incentives, like allowing trees to come down without mitigation, smaller lots that might impact neighborhoods, et cetera. And from a policy perspective, we all might think, that's there's a trade-off, and that's a good thing for affordable housing. But I think we need to be careful not to go down a slippery slope to say, oh, and by the way, we're going to offer that for all development. A lot of these policies.
Sorry. Yeah, these would be strictly, and that's why we are looking at creating a separate part of the code specifically for affordable housing. And any time that they are utilized, there is a restriction placed on that property so that someone doesn't say, I'm building affordable housing, I'd like to get that waiver, and then not. And there's a lot more, I mean, I gave you quick, brief overviews, but there's a lot more details to it because, yes, we don't want to go down a slippery slope. We want to maintain the city's canopy. We just want to be reasonable in how we do it and provide some waivers that would allow for the project to be developed at an affordable price.
Right. And as I think it was Councilman Citro pointed out, when we do allow some of those waivers, et cetera, for somebody's wrestling, for the purpose of affordable housing, I think it's really important for council to know exactly, what the threshold is that we're allowing it for. In other words, is it a $70,000 four-person family, or is it a $50,000 four-person family, or what have you? As Carol, as you mentioned, these words, affordable, attainable workforce, after a while, they almost become meaningless without some precise numbers associated with them. So when you bring back those proposals to council for ordinance changes, let's make sure we're very, very specific in terms of who the
Yes,
recipient
sir.
is going to be for, for these types of proposals, not just using those vague words that I think are a little dangerous.
Yeah, there is a in the proposal, it includes definitions for what is considered workforce and what is considered affordable, and they're very specific in terms of incomes. So I can meet with you later and go through in greater detail, but during this forum, we just tried to stay high level.
No, that's fine, and I think the most important thing is that those types of details get codified when we're creating, the incentives as well. I saw a quick reference, Carol, it said something about South Tampa single family. I didn't hear anything more than that, and I was sort of shocked because the land prices in South Tampa, well, and now it's becoming really all over the place, but in South Tampa are sort of prohibitive for affordable housing on the whole. So what was that reference? South Tampa single family affordable housing?
Actually, and it was probably better defined as Port Tampa, and it's some property that the city owns that we're looking to develop some affordable housing on. But we are looking for where we can find property within South Tampa, because there's a workforce there that needs to be able to live near, that again would be part of the community land trust, so that that property could remain affordable.
So is that that's not the former landfill site down in Port Tampa that we're talking about, is it?
No, it's a fire station.
Fire station.
Former
okay.
fire station.
That was my next guess.
Yeah.
How big is the fire station property?
I believe it's about 3 acres, but again, I can get greater detail and share that with you offline.
Yeah, I was just curious, because if you were finding affordable housing type property in South Tampa, that you were really doing amazing work. Not that you're not always doing amazing work, but let's see. Oh, give us a quick update on the riverfront property. I think most of us stood out there on that pre-COVID day in the winter and enjoyed a pleasant time under a tent, talking about what the future of that property might be. Now, I guess we're at least 8 months later. I assume there's an RFP probably in some sort of draft form that you guys had promised you'd let us see before it went out on the street. Where are we at in that riverfront property?
So we have now concluded the meetings with the community, because we did meet with the West Tampa community to get their input. We have a draft of the RFP that is being circulated through city departments, so that we can include any potential future developments, making the developers aware. The plan is to put that RFP out sometime this fall.
Okay, it sounds like a lot of people have been talking about this, and a lot of people are seeing the RFP. I think it'd be great if you could share it with council, at least in writing, before it goes too much further, because that way we can give you our individual input. Like I said, before it gets too far along. My last question, Mr. Chairman, is, and I think one of the other council members, maybe Mr. Citro, alluded to it earlier. This number that we're shooting for, Carol, I don't have it right in front of me, but seemed like it was 10,000 units. Yeah, there it is, 10,000 units by 2027. How did the committee derive that number? What was the origin of that number? Because it does seem a bit arbitrary, and I'm wondering how much it really addresses the truly poor truly poor folks, not, when we talk about a family of $4 and $70,000, I realize they might be struggling a bit, but they're not, that I don't think that's truly the poorest folks that we're dealing with. So does that 10,000 units, are we addressing, folks who might have a family of 4 on $30,000 a year, working 2 jobs at Burger King and Chick-fil-A or whatever?
In the report.
Yeah, to be responsive to that, so I spoke a little bit about it on that slide. The rationale there was twofold, and in response to the nature of your question. One was to be able, well, there were really 3 things noted. The group felt that it was very important to have an actual target. We talk a lot about wanting to increase and have more in aspirational terms, and we wanted to be more metrics driven. So they spent some time, there was a breakout group that focused on this, and they spent some time understanding what the production numbers were currently and had been historically, and they used that as the baseline. And as I said, and kind of rolling this up somewhat high level, but the city, through city support functions where the city is a party to or a pass-through, has typically resulted in about 900 additional units per year, that being single-family home and rental. And that's before the infill project came online. And so the challenge was, well, how many more could we do, both from the city support services, but in addition to, if we were very effective at influencing private development in some of the ways that we've all just been talking about, through code revisions, through driving costs down, through providing new opportunities for tiny homes and other matters, how could we help drive the economics of it to make it more attractive to the private sector, and then count that as additions to our community? And so, through a variety of sense, the idea was, can you double the number? That seems somewhat ambitious. So resulting in the 350 more a year felt like it was reasonable, it was ambitious, but achievable. And that was about a 38% increase. So if I recall the conversations, folks were wanting to try to say, could we get like 50% more? And that just seemed like a stretch. So we ended up somewhere between 30 and 40%. And to some extent, it's a good round number. And not to make that arbitrary, there was a good amount of discussion involved. But that was, the basis was, what are we doing now and have typically done, historically done, and how confident are we that we can add to that at, not just a 5 or a 10% reach, but more like a 30-40% reach. And so that's where the group ended up. So that's where the 10,000 comes from. It would jump from an average of about 900 a year to about 1,250 a year. And as I said before, it will not solve every issue, but it does give us a new bar to strive for and a specific measurable target to try to achieve.
Well, thank you. You brought up one last question. I apologize, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
And it's really probably the biggest question, which is about funding and about a sustainable funding mechanism. And again, we started talking about it a year ago in regard to Affordable Housing Trust Fund, but it looks like we haven't gone very far in terms of finding a sustainable source of money. Year after year, we rely on federal funds, and we pass them through to various projects, and we do a good job as the pass-through agent. We don't really generate hardly anything in terms of cash ourselves locally to address this issue. I just want to point out the irony that when we have a flooding problem all over the city, we create a stormwater fee. And we address it. When we have a water pipes problem and a sewer problem, we
Please silence.
Hello?
Yeah. No, it's whoever's phone is going off. They can just hit, that side button. Thank you very much.
Anyway, when we have a stormwater problem, we address with the stormwater fee. When we have a water and sewer problem, we address it with a big increase in sewer and water fees, and we call it pipes. We have an affordable housing crisis that's only going to get worse. And Carol, your numbers are probably conservative, but we appreciate them. But we aren't developing a long-term sustainable approach to funding this. And I think, and I can't help but think that the task force must have addressed this as well. So I think that needs to be our number one priority over the next year, is to figure out what that is. I know the county came up with their own and identified $10 million of county money, and they're going to share a little bit of that, but that's not sustainable for the city. So I don't have the answer today, but I do have that really important question that I think we need to start working on today and continue working on until we answer it. Thank you. And Carol, that's a question.
Well, I appreciate it. I would respond like you. We don't have a magic answer for it today. I think what we've tried to reflect on is that there's no single answer. There's many different avenues to try to drive solutions here. And frankly, from our perspective and from the mayor down, there's nothing off the table. We're open to any ideas, all discussions. And what we've presented today is certainly not the end of our game plan. It's an evolving and growing and constantly shifting plan that we will take all inputs and suggestions for. I would just emphasize, though, that, and I'll let if Vanessa wants to jump in terms of being the conduit for funds, that we're very effective at, and we are constantly seeking to get more and have a greater pot to be able to distribute. But we very much feel like we can also influence that private sector and try to create a market economic structure that will incentivize and create a more appealing economic dynamic for the private sector to help solve here help solve this as well, by driving costs down, by incentivizing, by taking out some of the requirements that are currently part of development and housing, as Vanessa ran through the laundry list. So we think there's many paths here and welcome all input.
Yeah. And I this is Vanessa McCleary. I just want to add that we were exploring city funding sources for affordable housing, and then we got hit with COVID. And I think that kind of derailed our efforts on that front. We have a lot of resources right now that we are working with, and I love money. But I can say right now, I don't love money. We have a lot of CARES Act funding that we are trying to deploy, and I definitely believe that we need a city funding source for affordable housing, just not right now. Unfortunately, we have a lot of work we need to do with the COVID relief efforts. That's going to take us a little while to make sure that we spend down those resources that are coming into the community. But you're absolutely right. We do need to do something, and we will get back to that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, staff.
Next up, Councilmember Carlson and Councilmember Vieira. Councilman Carlson, go ahead. And remember, there's another PowerPoint after this.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to echo many of the things my colleagues have said about getting a funding source and also focusing on workforce housing and other kinds of housing. The Tampa Chamber and others have been working on this for a long time, and we have a problem because, as you all know, the housing affordability affects transportation, traffic jams, and other issues that we face too. But in particular, I just wanted to thank Ms. Post and Ms. McCleary and all of your staff for the hard work on this. Very impressive presentation. Thank you for the thoroughness of it. You all know that this has been an issue for this city council since I think the first or second meeting that we had. The community came before us in large numbers, and we've had Ms. McCleary and others come before us to talk about it, and we look forward to rolling up our sleeves and partnering with you on this. Some of the complaints of the past, first of all, the shortage of housing, the quality of housing, the lack of accessibility or communication, There were many private sector vendors, contractors, and others who complained and said that they thought the RFP process was not fair. And probably the worst example of all was what's now called the West River, where there were not only complaints about how the RFP was handled, but also the fact that so many people were displaced with no housing aligned for them to move into. Many people in the community called it the whitewashing of Tampa, and still the number of houses that are going to be affordable that are going back there are a small number compared to the ones that were taken away, which really forced a lot of people outside the city limits. So the bottom line is it seems like you've addressed all of these issues and more, and you're looking diligently at trying to resolve this. And I think it's a good partnership between the administration and city council and the community. And so we look forward to doing it. My big question, similar to what others have asked, and I remember, Mr. Dingfellow, you can correct us later, but I remember you mentioning a number like 10,000 or something like that when you were running for office, or in one of the first meetings we had. But the head of the Housing Authority came before us a few months ago and said that the stated number of shortage today is 25,000. And he said the real number is probably 50,000. And so the question is, we're not going to, and all of these agencies are not even going to get close to this number to meet the demand today, much less the demand tomorrow. And we all know that this economic situation is going to force more people into homelessness over the next year. So what do we do about that? Do people just have to move out of the city? Do they sublet space? Do families move in with each other? How do we address the current shortage? And then what happens if we have 10,000 more people out of their homes in the next year? How do we address that? Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much.
In response to that, this is Vanessa McCleary again. That's why we have been so focused on incentivizing the for-profit community to get involved in the need for workforce and affordable housing. And we're tackling that from two fronts. We are talking to the large contractors about how they can support the effort, how they can include affordable units in their developments, as well as talking with businesses and pointing out to them it's your workforce that we're trying to house, and the importance for their bottom line in helping us to house their workforce. So by getting the business community, getting the private sector involved in this effort is the only way that we're going to meet that number. Government can't do it on its own. And so you'll see a lot more of our efforts pushing information out to the private sector to get them more involved. And we have seen eyes are being opened, and we're getting more responses from the private community, the private sector, asking how they can be supportive. And so we'll continue to have forums like our virtual event to show them the different paths that they can use to affect more affordable housing affordability.
Mr. Chair, if I could just say one more quick note. Everyone I talked to when I joined City Council, everyone I talked to in the field said that Ms. McCleary is top notch and very well respected in the industry. And I appreciate her staying on through this whole transition. And what I've seen the administration has done is they pulled some excellent people out like Ms. McCleary and given them more resources, which is what they needed to do a better job. So thank you, Ms. McCleary, and thank you, the administration, for supporting.
And I second that, sir. All right, Councilman Vieira.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that, sir. And I just wanted to just make some brief remarks. A lot of, issues have been taken up and spoken about very eloquently. This is it's a pivotal issue. It's what you call a bread and butter issue for working families. As everybody has said, I salute the administration. I salute the mayor and her wonderful staff for making this into a major issue. Like I said last week, again, I salute all council members. All council members care a great deal about this issue and are passionate. But again, like I did last week, I think it's proper to single out Dingfelder, Carlson, and Goods for just continually pushing this issue. I always believe in giving credit, and I think that's important. So I salute those council members. We know that the bottom has fallen out of our economy. When I look at this issue of affordable housing, I see it in the context of our larger economy and the other issues that this fallout touches. A lot of us talk about the things that we heard on the campaign trail, And affordable housing was in a crisis when unemployment was 3.5%, 4%. When we were talking to folks on the campaign trail, think about when we were running for office and what we heard in September of 18, October of 2018, et cetera. Those stories at the time were real. They represented the struggles of families and folks, et cetera, and people who were going through, you could call a Category 3 hurricane 2 years ago. Imagine how those, economic hurricanes for these families are 2 years later. Unemployment between 10 and 11%, the bottom falling out of our economy due to a pandemic. The hits these families take just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I like that the city is making these investments and these partnerships. I'd like to see the state of Florida make better investments that are more robust, and the federal government too. We make investments through partnerships with other governments in the private sector and numerous entities. The city certainly isn't going at it alone, but we're certainly looking to make our mark through leadership, which is really important. And I think there's another large issue that's implicated here, which is our budget on a larger issue, the budget of a municipality, a budget of a government in a time of economic loss. It's been in the media that our city of Tampa budget is larger this year. But I have a principle, which is that when people are hurting, it's the duty of government to act and use the tools in government's toolbox to help those hurting people out. When people have to cut back, government shouldn't have to correspond in the tools that help those people that are cutting back. There's a popular political slogan that says the opposite, but I've always respectfully disagreed. I'm not talking about fraud, waste, abuse, needless programs, needless positions. I'm talking about programs and efforts that actually help those people that are hurting. And one of those is affordable housing. And that means affordable and quality housing, both with ownership as well as making sure that folks have quality housing. And in all areas of the city, as Councilman Goods has talked about, take a look at, for example, in North Tampa, the Timber Falls apartments. They were the subject of the article in the Tampa Bay Times by Emily Mahoney. Mold, rats and rodents, AC problems being alleged. We all have to use, as we're doing, our bully pulpit on these issues. As has been said a lot in the last few weeks and months, when you see something wrong, call it out. I was talking to a friend of mine about this yesterday. That when it comes to communities, we have to create on issues like housing more Bedford Falls and no Pottersvilles, if you know It's a Wonderful Life. And a lot of times, the city of Tampa has to sail against the wind of national trends. I'm not going to name names, but we have a certain national elected official who's using affordable housing, a concern for so many working families, as a wedge issue. It's amazing that we are here in the year 2020 where affordable housing is being used as a wedge issue in the suburbs nationally. And we've heard statements on affordable housing that, as I always tell people, would make George Wallace in 1968 blush. And we'll sail against the wind on that issue if we have to, as a city, as a community. But times are tough, and they're certainly getting tougher. And again, I see affordable housing as part of a larger agenda of dignity. So let's invest in affordable housing. Let's do, as we've talked about, better in our land use code for affordable housing encouragements. Let's invest in our budget in recreational activities for families and in our infrastructure to strengthen the ties between communities and also put people back to work. Let's encourage, through the encouragement of apprenticeships in our contracting process, a pipeline, not to prison, as we often see for our young people, but to economic security and the middle class. And also, let's make sure that mass transit and transportation, that plays such a pivotal, directly related relationship and role with affordable housing, is a priority for our community. And if that means going back to the ballot in 2022, then let's do that. But that's our job today, is to strengthen communities in a time of acute hits taken by a lot of our families here in the city. It's part of a larger agenda of dignity for working families. And if affordable housing, again, was pivotal 2 years ago, and we've had council members who have championed it, and I salute them all, imagine today, our world has changed. and imagine that crisis that we heard about on the campaign trail, and imagine how it is today. It's out of control. And I'm glad to see that we're acting and having this discussion. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. We have another PowerPoint presentation. If you'd like to begin, I'll reserve my comments after that presentation. But if you'd like to begin with part 2 of the discussion, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, and I appreciate everybody's comments, and particularly recognition for Vanessa McCleary and the team that have done all of the heavy lifting for many years and moving forward. So thanks for acknowledging that. So the next presentation is a reflection on one of the tools in our toolkit, and it is one, again, it's also responsive to a motion that was made just a couple of weeks ago by Councilman Goods with respect to the status of the contracts that are the roots of this particular engagement. But as with the previous presentation, we felt like it was a great opportunity to give a more comprehensive reflection on the program itself, the origins, the status of it, and how it's winding up. This will conclude at the end of this calendar year, so it's a great opportunity to reflect upon it. As we said, there are many tools that need to be implemented in order to solve the problem. This is one of them. We think that it did provide a great deal of success. It ultimately will result in almost 100 new properties on the being in the marketplace and having families and residents residing in them. We'll go through all of those details. But there were also a great deal of lessons learned about how, again, this kind of drumbeat of how our government sector, our not-for-profit sector, and our private sectors can all become part of the solution, whether it's on independent paths or collectively. So I'm going to have Vanessa carry through this presentation. She is one of the architects of the program and has really been shepherding it for the past year and a half plus. And so great kudos to her. It is not perfect. We admit that there are many lessons learned here, but our goal is to maximize the positives that most definitely came as a result of this program and adapt accordingly moving forward. We'll conclude the presentation with a couple of thoughts about where we take this path and how this can also help inform our ability to meet our housing affordability objectives. So with that, I'll turn over to Vanessa. Thank you.
Good morning again. So next slide. Before we get into the actual project, I just wanted to reflect on how we came to the project. Next slide. In 2017, we started working on affirmatively furthering fair housing. It's an analysis that's required by the federal government for organizations that receive federal funds. So next slide. We did our affirmatively furthering fair housing analysis with the county as well as the Tampa Hillsborough Homeless Initiative. This document was one of the source documents that the committee had. And so in the analysis, you see that there was a need to increase the supply of affordable housing, develop subsidized infill home ownership options. Next slide. One of the important takeaways that I saw when we were doing the analysis was that in 1990, and these are based on census data, we had a small but decent size racial and ethnic concentrated area of poverty. In 2000, we saw a decrease in those areas. And then in 2010, they got larger. And so looking at that, it really struck us that our racially and ethnically concentrated areas of poverty were growing and why they were growing. And a lot of it had to do with HUD's policies of where we would deploy funding. Next slide. So as we were doing that analysis, we were also having a lot of community meetings, and which we traditionally do with our annual action plan, as well as through this analysis and just attending some of the different neighborhood meetings on a regular. And the things that we noticed that they were complaints about overgrown lots, lots that had become dumping sites. We also recognized that we had in HCD, I had over 100 lots that were under my control that we were just paying taxes and mowing fees on. We were also seeing that property values were stagnating in some areas. We had nonprofit developers that were having a hard time getting appraisals for their costs. So they were building housing that had to be significantly subsidized to cover their costs for the housing. And then as the market was expanding, it was getting harder and harder for people to find homes to purchase. So we had a long list of, for our down payment assistance program, people that were qualified, were mortgage ready, but when they went out to find a house, they were in a competing market with investors and other folks where they weren't able to secure a property to purchase. And so that reservation just went away and they remained renters. Next slide. So our proposal to addressing all of this was that we have these city-owned lots that are an asset, but aren't really acting as an asset. So we wanted to use those for single-family homes. We wanted to stabilize our neighborhoods because we were also working with neighborhoods and hearing about the issues in the schools. And we know that our schools have these high transition rates. You know, they were saying that almost 90% of the students, and this is especially in Sulphur Springs, 90% of the students that started the school year at that school didn't finish at that school. Well, that becomes very disruptive. And they were moving because of the housing cost burden, that families, if the rent went up by $100, their incomes weren't such that they could afford that $100, and so they were moving. We also recognize that our nonprofit organizations didn't really have the capacity to build at the rate that we needed building to be done. Next slide. So in our attempts to address this problem, we put out an RFP. Next slide. And for that RFP, we solicited a number of different developers to try to encourage them to bid on the project, but we only received one proposal. And that project was Nehemiah Phase 2. We put out 18 lots. We gave $1 million. And the only thing we said was, you don't have to give that $1 million back, but when you get the proceeds from the sale of the home, build another 6 homes. With that project, which is still ongoing, there were a lot of lessons that we learned, that there was definitely a high demand for affordable single-family housing, and the neighborhood didn't matter. That people wanted to have more options in neighborhoods, but they were really looking to buy a home. We also recognized that we had to be able to build quickly because the nonprofit partner, Rebuilding Together Tampa Bay, that was helping us with that Nehemiah project was losing a lot of product to theft. And we also recognized that subsidizing the developer didn't always help it helped that particular buyer, but it didn't help the neighborhood, and that we needed to deconcentrate poverty. Next slide. So when you look at, and this is what Councilman Miranda was talking about, when you looked at the projects that we've done over the years, and this starts at 2014 because I started with the city at the end of 2013. My first project was Nehemiah Phase 1. For that project, we put $1.4 million to get 11 new homes, and the average sales price was $90,000. Now that sales price was based on the neighborhood in which we were building because it had such a poor reputation. It had a lot of things that weren't going right, and we were looking to turn it around. So we wanted to incentivize folks to buy in that neighborhood. We also couldn't get appraisals above that level. In 2015, we worked with one of our longtime partners, Community CDC. We gave them $650,000 to build 7 homes at an average sales price of $165,000, and it just goes on. working with our nonprofit partners, it was great because they made housing affordable and it catered to the community, but they weren't able to produce the number of houses that there was a demand for. And so we had implemented a property disposition program in 2017, and through that program, we were providing lots free to developers. Mostly who took advantage of that program. We did have a couple of for-profit developers, but mostly it was Habitat for Humanity. Next slide. So from all these different projects, we decided we were going to put out another RFP, and in preparing to put that out, we worked with our Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, and they helped us to talk to a number of different developers to find out what would it take to get them to respond to an RFP. And one of the things we heard, and we talked to 11 different for-profit developers, and they were all saying that we had to have an economy of scale. So they needed a minimum of 35 lots to develop, because it was a matter of producing a lot of housing at the same time to help reduce their costs. Next slide. Sorry, next slide. So when we put the RFP out, we advertised it in the newspaper. We sent it to a number of different developers directly. We had a technical assistance workshop. Next slide. At that workshop, 18 different companies were represented. 8 of those were minority businesses, 5 were nonprofits. It was a total of 30 people. Next slide, sorry, that attended that workshop. So we were expecting to get more of a response. Next slide. The proposals were due on December 5th, and at that time, we only received 1 response. And like I said, when we did the Nehemiah project, we only got 1 response. We've done Chodo RFPs, we've only gotten 1 response on many of them. So when we got 1 response on this one, we still took it to the evaluation committee, which was made up of 3 of our AHAC members, Affordable Housing Advisory Committee members, and 1 which was Pamela Rudd, and she was a banker, because we always like to have a finance person, a developer, folks that are going to be subject matter experts to really be able to evaluate the proposal. Next slide. So one of the reasons that we awarded that contract was because the proposal that we received from Domain Homes was a collaboration with them, Habitat for Humanity, CDC of Tampa, as well as housing counseling agencies, because in their proposal, they talked about funding housing counseling agencies to do the education portion and qualifying the buyers for the project. We used First Housing to disperse the funds, because what we provided to them was a revolving loan fund where we wanted our money back at the end. Next slide, please. So the implementation schedule for that project, they were to have a model home created by March of 2018. They were to acquire the lot and develop the model home that would be open by June of 2018. They were to have pulled their first permit July, have 10 homes done by January of the next year, and all of the homes completed by January of 2021. Next slide. So with that proposal, what we provided to them was an investment on the city's part of about $2.6 million. We divided the revolver to $1.1 million for a revolving loan fund. $400,000 was a subsidy designed for the nonprofit agencies for homes sold to anyone at 80% of area median or below. We also provided a lot readiness fund, and that was to deal with issues that contractors run into when developing lots, trees, assessments, title issues. We also provided $75,000 for a suit to quiet title because we did have title issues on a number of those lots, and 95 lots that had an assessed value of $854,000. Next slide. So in terms of the outputs and what we got for our investment, next slide. Domain Homes did build a model home valued at $741,000. It allowed the buyers to go in and see, feel, touch, and pick what they wanted in the homes that they were purchasing and selling. So far, they have completed 63 homes. They have 13 under construction, 10 of which are under contract. In addition to what they did under our contract, they also did 2 owner-occupied rehabs, and that was just something they did outside of our contract on their own. They provided stipends to 4 different housing counseling agencies that total $126,000, and they invested over $10 million to date. They also, this project introduced them to the neighborhood, and they funded a number of different nonprofits and philanthropic efforts in the area. Next slide. So we've gotten a lot of complaints about who was buying these homes, and so far, 72% of the homes were sold to African Americans, 11% were sold to Hispanics, 3% to Asians, and 14% to white head of households. The average sales price of the home was $204,000. The average mortgage payment was $1,180. So that $1,180 is much lower than the average 1-bedroom, which is now running around $1,500 in Tampa. Next slide. Habitat was a partner, and they were provided with 10 lots. So far, they have sold 8 of those homes. They have 2 under construction. Through the Habitat model, they always do sweat equity. They continued that with this project. Habitat invested about $1.2 million, and they spent about $57,000 on impact fees. Next slide. 60% of their homeowners were African American, 30% were Hispanic, and 10% were white. Their average sales price was $191,000. Their average mortgage payment was $748. Those homeowners have a beautiful new home for half of what someone is spending for a 1-bedroom. And the buyers contributed so far 2,100 hours in sweat equity. Next slide. There are some misconceptions around Habitat homes, and so this slide just shows you what those homes look like. They look like what any other builder is putting into the neighborhood. They come with landscaping, they have nice features, they're not just square boxes. Next slide. CDC was also a partner in this collaboration. There were some problems that happened as they were going along, and so they didn't get their MOU until April of 2019. So far, they have completed 3 homes, and they have 3 under construction. They've invested about $542,000. Next slide. They also are building beautiful homes that have stainless steel appliances, granite countertops. We wanted to make sure that whatever was built through this collaboration was an attractive home that anybody would be interested in buying. We didn't want to downgrade any of the features and make it something that someone would say, oh, this is an affordable house. They are also staging those houses, which has helped to move them in terms of sales. Next slide. So in terms of outcomes, and when we do a project, it's not just about building the homes. Next slide. It's also about what it does for the community. So when you look at through that partnership, we have a total investment of just over $11 million, almost $12 million. And so far we've got 73 homes that were completed. Now, what did that do for the community? Next slide. So what we were able to see is that the home values went up. And when home values go up, it also means a benefit to everybody else that is in that East Tampa community. Next slide. We also saw new construction go up within the community. So we had total sales, and you're looking there, the blue is 2018, the orange is 2019, and the gray is 2020. So 2020, we're not even all the way through the year, and so far we've got 223 homes that have been sold. In terms of new construction, last year we had 61 new homes. This year so far we have 61 new homes that have been built. And these new construction, we're seeing more new construction happening that is not, doesn't have any of our funding in it. And then you also see the resale numbers and what was done by domain. Next slide. So from 2012 to 2017, there were 35 new homes built in East Tampa. From 2018 to July of 2020, 140 new homes have been built. So we have stimulated the market, which was one of our goals. The average sales price is now $209,000. We went from $170,000 as a average to now $209,000, but we are still below the $272,000, which is the average home sales in Tampa. Next slide. So when we look at the program successes, we took lots that were a detriment to the community and we gave them a new purpose. And so that eliminated dumping sites, that improved property values. The properties that we provided were valued at $854,000. They're now valued at over $16 million, which results in about $270,000 a year in additional property tax revenue for East Tampa CRA. With those property values going up, we were able to increase equity for home buyers, for homeowners who are in the area, as well as lower the monthly housing costs for the home buyers. We were able to stimulate the market by 350%. We were able to support our nonprofit agencies, so all of those housing counseling agencies now have a new revenue stream, and we were able to stabilize the housing market within the area. Next slide. So this is just a recap of all those points of what was the benefit to the residents in East Tampa. Next slide. We started out with a number of community issues, and we were able to address all of them through this project. Next slide. With our return on investment, we also get to look at the fact that when this project comes to a conclusion, we will receive back that $1.1 million revolver. So we had a return on investment of 4-to-1. Next slide. So we do know that with every program, project, anything that we do, there's always going to be challenges, and we're not oblivious to that. Next slide. In terms of replicating a program like this, we know that we have limited lots, and so we are in need of a multi-pronged approach to acquiring property and making sure that it remains affordable. When it came to messaging, one of the biggest problems I think we had with this program is there was a lot of misinformation out there, and we probably could have done a I know we could have done a much better job of promoting the program, and putting the facts out. When it came to the equitable support, we provided the funding to Domain and to the 3 partners, but the funds that were made available were not equally distributed, which did cause CDC to not be able to move as quickly as the other partners. The lots that we provided, we found that they had a lot of issues. There were title issues, there were infrastructure issues, there were issues with the overgrowth in the trees. All of that added to the cost. We provided a lot readiness fund to address those costs, but it was not enough. Including we provided funding to do the suits to quiet title, and that was also not enough funding to cover those. So those are things that we want to look at addressing as we move forward. Next slide. So when we look back on this project, it achieved the goals that we set out to achieve, and it helped us to create a market. And now the market is taking over. So as we drive through East Tampa, you can see a sign for a Domain home, but you can also see signs of other developers that are building within the market and bringing more amenities and higher priced quality housing into the area. Next slide. So in terms of our path forward, at the end of this year, Domain will have completed their 75 homes. 20% of those homes were sold to families at 80% of area median income or below. The agreement actually called for 10%, so they actually doubled that. At this time, CDC and Domain are working on a mutual agreement to dissolve their partnership. CDC will continue to build on the lots that were designated to them. They had 10 properties designated to them. And Domain will no longer be over the distribution of the lots to CDC when that dissolution occurs. Next slide. At the end of the program, like I said, we will get the revolving loan funds back, and we can use those funds to further incentivize developers to build on infill lots. We are proposing a couple of incentives. There are the zoning incentives, but then there are also incentives that we are looking at proposing through our division in ways that we can use those funds to help spur additional affordable housing, because we want to continue to make sure that these, there were city-owned lots that are in these neighborhoods terrorizing their neighbors with overgrowth and becoming dumping sites that could also be used for affordable housing development. So we're looking at ways that we can capture those properties and put them back into the market. Next slide. None of this work is done by one person, so it takes a team, and this is the city team that worked on the project. So there were folks from my division as well as from the real estate division and legal. Next slide. And so just wanted to give you an overview of where we are with that program. And at this point, if there are any questions, we're happy to answer.
Chair, thank you, Vanessa. Chairman Escalco, I appreciate you indulging. I know that was a very lengthy presentation. I hope that it was intended to really get somewhat into the weeds. This program, as I think many of us know, there have been many opinions about the program, and there's been some misconceptions about it. So we really wanted to try to clarify the history and its origins and its current state. And we recognize that it's been successful, but we're very honest as well about gaps and what our plans would be to fill those moving forward. So again, appreciate to Vanessa and her team for carrying the lift on this. And I recognize we're close to the lunch hour. We're happy to stay around and take questions however you see fit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate all your hard work. I know a lot of a lot of effort and time went into this presentation, and it answers a lot of questions. So I'm going to start down the line with Councilman Miranda, and we'll go from there. Councilman Miranda, if you have any questions or comments.
Well, there's so many of them that I just hold to another day when I meet with them first, and then we'll go together on it, because I have a lot of things to discuss, and I'll take too much time. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councilman Citro.
No, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will discuss things later on. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Carlson.
No, thank you. And I've had private conversations with them about this too, and I appreciate them clarifying for the public all the different aspects of this. I think one of the pieces of feedback I heard from other developers and private and nonprofit is just that they thought the political climate before a year and a half ago was not such that they would be awarded an RFP. And so I'm glad now that we've cleared the air on that, and that hopefully everybody sees that it's a transparent process, and that it's open to everybody, and that there's a level playing field for everybody, because as they said, we need all the money we can get and all the efforts we can get, because with everything we can do, we'll just put a small dent in this enormous problem. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Council Member Dingfelder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions. Carol or Vanessa, I'm not sure who wants to answer this. First off, let me say that I think Domain has taken a lot, or people in the community have taken pot shots at Domain unfairly. We heard it on the campaign trail. We've heard it over the last year, a little bit less. But I think it's unfair because as a private developer, they were making a lot of money just doing their own thing. But then they saw this need, and they thought they'd be a good member of the community, and they'd step up and see if they could help. And I commend them for doing that. Vanessa, you mentioned a $10 million investment. And what I'm curious about was, as part of the reporting requirements, do we know what sort of profit or loss that Domain or this division of Domain obtained or lost, getting involved in the project? In other words, maybe Domain, it looks like maybe they're backing away a little bit now with the CDC, and I don't know if they're backing away from the whole program when they get done with this initial part of it. But is this something we can sell to other for-profit folks and say, come join us? This is how much money Domain made. Do we know those figures? Do we have those figures?
We do not have those figures, but we have been approached by a number of different developers who everybody sat on the sidelines and wasn't willing to be the first one in, that are now ready to get into the program if we were to launch again.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna inquire privately with Domain and see if they can, help us answer that, because I think that's a key question is, is this a profit-making venture for a private company, or is this a loser? My next question relates to community land trusts, and I think I saw on one of the slides that talked about a 99-year lease, to a property owner or property owners over a 99-year period. Is it safe to assume that banks will lend, or certain lenders will lend to somebody that wants to build on leased property?
Yes, there are a number of lenders, and the list keeps growing as the program has become more and more popular. The 99-year lease is akin to ownership, and so that's why it's phrased that way. But it keeps renewing.
Right. Okay, so that's not a barrier. That's not a barrier to, like, if we come up with X number of lots and we put them into the community land trust, it's not a barrier for people to come along and be able to build the traditional home and get a mortgage for it, et cetera.
Correct. It's not a barrier.
And Councilman Dingfelder, this is Carol Post, just to sort of follow your train of thought there. That is in fact what Vanessa and team are to some extent proposing. It's very preliminary stages, but building on the successful aspects of this program would be to continue those successful aspects, cast a wider net and enable other private and for-profit developers to participate in it, but that the underlying land would flow through the community land trust. That's one thing that it obviously did not exist. So these 95 parcels, while they do have some deed restrictions that will maintain sustainability for, I think, 10 years, at some point those restrictions fall off and there's no further guardrails. So we would propose that future programs of this sort would flow through the CLT and have that much longer term sustainability for affordability.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a good idea. In terms of sustainability for these types of programs, as we start succeeding in these efforts, and I was thinking about an affordable housing trust fund or the community land trust or some of these other programs, I'm going to suggest that you bring them to council to codify in the code in some form or another.
Sorry, say that again?
Dingfelder, did you get cut off? I think, was Dingfelder disconnected?
I show him still being on the
Continue
line.
if they're in the code, in land, and not the land use code, so as we get some of these structures in place, let's think about doing that.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, we
all I have.
can give. Thank you. I appreciate it. We missed a little bit of your thought, but I think I can follow along. And as I said, we're relying on Florida Housing Coalition, who has brought a great deal of best practice to the table and really demonstrating for us how other jurisdictions have done this successfully. But we're happy to share some of those approaches before all of that gets finalized. And thank you. I appreciate the feedback.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Goods. Councilmember Goods?
Chairman, can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me, sir?
Right, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, sir. Ms. Post, I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to return your phone call. I got in late last night, and let me apologize for not getting back with you last night. Let me get started. East Tampa has a lot of lots. They may be city-owned, or they may be just lots that are overgrown, old abandoned houses on them that might be private. I think it may become a time to where we need to look at those lots as well that are undeveloped, that are houses that are dilapidated, falling down, to see if we can try to acquire some of those private lots to be able to add to the stock of housing in the East Tampa area. I think that's very vital. I made mention to the CRA they need to start looking at probably purchasing some of these lots to be able to clean up the place. Again, I look at beautification. When people see things that are moving in a different direction, they have a good buy-in, and you get the economic empowerment and economic growth. So I'm hoping that we can have a conversation and talk about these type of properties and be able to come up with a program to be able to acquire this. We have a real estate division, and hoping the real estate department is listening to be a part of this process to get some of these underutilized lots in the area. Number two, I'm familiar with the Domain Home situation. I sat on the CEC board when Domain was working on the project. So Mr. Dingfelder, I hear you, but there were some situations that I was at the table with Domain, and there was some requests that was asked, and we thought the Domain was not truthful at the time when we asked them for some information and asked them an appeal to do some things, and came back and kind of blindsided us. So yes, they're a good company, but at times there was a lack of communications about some issues. But I'm glad to see on 22nd Street, 21st, that we have some homes that look beautiful. I guess I'm kind of biased a little bit because I like Habitat for Humanities. I've been at several of their groundbreakings, and I just tell you, to me, it seems to maybe I'm biased because the way when they bring a new homeowner in, they have prayer, they bless the home. It just seemed like a big hoopla for a family to be able to walk into a new place that they've never been and to say, I have a place to lay my head, and we're not going pillar to post now. We've got a home. So I guess that's my little bias point with Habitat. But again, the CDC does a great job as well. But I'm just hoping that we can get, again, more people part of the process now. I'm glad to see that we have some transparency. We had the good points and we had the low points in the programs. So going forward, I'm hoping that, again, we do better. We get more in and we can get things more stock in throughout all of the city. But I do know that East Tampa has a lot of undeveloped lots that have just torn down buildings or buildings on there that could be utilized or rehabbed. We may need to look at some of these homes that may need just a little tender love and care and purchase those homes, resell them, and see how we can get our money back on the back end as it relates to some of the stock in the east side of town. Lastly, Ms. McClary, I know you've been a part of this process a long time. The relationships with the nonprofits and these big developer stakeholders. Can you speak to that? Because I hear there's a lot of things that are not, I say, done above board. I think now, I guess with the CDC and domain situation, we've kind of severing ties. Could you speak to some of that so we don't have these kind of communication problems or mismanagement going forward?
Yeah, I mean, no good deed goes unpunished. I will say that their relationship has been tenuous throughout. We have been working to negotiate through that, and I think severing ties is probably the best way forward. And so we're facilitating that process, and hopefully we will get everybody where they need to be so we can do that. And again, it's a lesson learned in terms of the language that we would put into an agreement, just making sure that it is tighter and well-defined as to who is entitled to what. Even though they brought the partnership to us, we could have done more to protect the nonprofits. That's something that we will do next time.
Thank you. Again, what do you think about what I talked about, some of these lots that do have rundown houses or houses that could have leave a lasting impression on the communities, and us trying to obtain some of these things to try to work our rehab program?
Oh, that is something that we are actively looking at. So yes, that's one of the reasons, once we get the community land trust developed, that we would then start an aggressive program to acquire and add properties that we could then beautify. We're also looking at those vacant lots, like you said, that are a detriment to the community, that have tax liens, and can we foreclose on those as a way of acquiring? We're looking at properties where it's not clear who the owner is. The previous owner passed away, they didn't have any family, or the family didn't want the property, and so those are also out there. So we're just looking at all of these lots to see how we can better utilize them.
And Councilman Goods, this is Carol Post again, just to add one additional dimension to that concept, and really appreciate your support around identifying some of these homes. There is a refreshed program, I would say, initiated by our new chief building official, who reconnected with our code enforcement team and our CRA leadership, who have very much been trying to advocate for the condemnation of abandoned, dilapidated, uninhabitable homes that have become eyesores and frankly very unsafe situations. And really, we were a little bit in our own way. And so I credit John Hutchison, our new CBO, who's reconnected with some of the partners across the city. They did a field trip just a week or so ago. I think they saw about 12 or 18 properties in a day, and just were very quick to be able, and very decisive, I think, about saying this home is not rehabable, and it's not just an eyesore, but it's an unsafe situation. So they are taking very swift action to move forward with some condemnation proceedings around these vacated, abandoned properties. Just another tool in the toolkit.
I appreciate that, but I just want to make sure that I always look at making sure that we're fair to the people. And if we're doing that, making sure we reach every avenue to reach a homeowner, somebody to make sure that they can do whatever they need to do to fix it, or if they want to give it to the city, or if we can give them something for the property, and make sure we have all avenues covered before we just say, as people say, the city's just taking somebody's home or property. We want to make sure that we're not in the business of doing it, but making sure we've got all avenues covered.
Agree.
I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councilman Vieira.
None, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I'll reserve my questions and comments offline, and I'll reach out to each one of you. And I appreciate all the information and the PowerPoint and all the work that has gone into this. I know that, we want to see success, and we want to see improvements, and we want to see results. All right. If there's nothing else, there's one other item, if we'd like to take that up. Next item was brought up by Councilmember Sitco, I believe.
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I may, it's getting close to 12 o'clock, and I want to make sure that, yes, and I want to make sure that the Green Initiative is given the ample time that it deserves. So I'm wondering if there's any recommendations on whether we should break, or if we can hear this now and wait to break or close until later on. It's up to you, Mr. Chair. I'm just asking.
It's complicated to break because we're virtual, so we would all have to log out and log back in. It's better that we don't. If we were on camera and it was video like tonight will be, then it's different. But I mean, I don't think it's a lengthy discussion, but I jinx myself when I say that. So if anyone's ready to present, go ahead and we'll finish this item and go into new business. Is there anybody here to present on this final item?
Hi, this is Russell Halpert from the CTO, City of Tampa, and basically I can give us a recap of where we are with this item, and I'd be pleased to hear the council discussion on it. As you may recall, this original request was several months ago to talk about what we could do to go green. The Chief of Staff's office gave us permission to move ahead with some emergency funding. And that turned out both on the council's part and on the Chief of Staff's part to be a great step in direction, because with us going fully virtual and having to do quasi-judicial, having the equipment that you needed in place in order to take care of those things became an important consideration for us. So just as a summary of where we are, we've worked with you to put in place iPads and laptops, about just under $10,000 worth of equipment. We have an estimated $3,600 a year in cellular data plans that go along with that. We deployed licensing for about $6,700 in up-to-date software. That's for your Office 365, Teams, and other collaboration software. From a process standpoint, my infrastructure manager, my change management folks, and our business application folks, Eric Marilyn and Joe Heggie, all worked with the clerk's office, your own executive aides, to help move forward a couple of things, get you trained where you need to be as far as using the equipment that we have and the software systems that we have already. And I feel we've made a lot of progress there, and I think we've enabled a lot of where you needed to go from a general standpoint in going green. We have some training that's going to be coming up. We've had some so far. We have more that's coming up for your staff. And so from this point, I want to say, how do you feel about where we are? And do you have any additional direction that you'd like to see us take in terms of helping you go a little bit further along this path?
Councilman Fisher, since it's your item, if you'd like to start it on.
Thank you very, very much. First, I want to send out much kudos to the IT team. They have been great throughout this whole process, especially with the COVID crisis, and they have been extremely adaptive. Matter of fact, I am now on my city-issued iPad. This is nothing new to me. I had been using a computer during my variance review board era. I just have a couple questions, and let me see if I can get them out so maybe you can answer them. First off, how much does the city council spend printer contracts, especially how much time do you think it consumes the staff and the aides, and how much waste do you know are we taking out of this business because of paper use? Secondly, in your opinion, what are the best ways to move forward through IT support and the function of city council and the city clerk's office and all other impacted offices still to reduce our carbon footprint, saving taxpayers dollars? If you can answer those two questions, I'd be extremely happy.
Okay. Well, if you don't mind, I'm going to speculate. This is Russell, CTO, City of Tampa again, for the record. If I can speculate on the first one, I didn't put a lot of work into finding out exactly what we do, but what I can tell you is in my previous job at a county government, just before I came to the city here, we had gone through a similar process. And we found that we might have spent as much as $8,000 to $10,000 a year in copying costs, in FedEx costs, just in direct paper and copying costs to support the council process. When you add in the staff time that goes to doing that, it's not inconceivable that we might save $10,000 a year, energy and convenience in doing that. I can certainly pull through and find better numbers for us. But to give you an order of scale, I don't think that's a crazy number based on the amount of handwork that goes into getting the documents to those folks. Now, I will tell you that from our perspective, there are a variety of use cases. Sometimes electronic is great, but you know, if you're on the bus or you're sitting on the beach, sometimes having that paper copy can be a nice thing, and we don't want to eliminate anything that council members find, you know, a boon to their work style, but we do feel that by deploying this equipment, not only have we enabled you to work from wherever you happen to be with the limits of connectivity in the cellular system today, but we also give you the ability to be more flexible, and we are saving a lot of paper costs as we bring people toward the actual process of getting used to pulling up things on their iPad and doing their research in that direction. So, you know, secondarily, where would I go from here? You know, I don't want to push technology on folks, but I feel like these COVID times have had to make us all be a little bit more flexible. I would like to see executive aides and the council trained as fully as they would like to be and all of the new technology that we do have at their disposal. I want to make sure that if they have a meeting they want to set up, they have that capability. I know, you know, from a budget perspective, I'd like to make sure that the systems that you guys have on a regular basis are upgraded and replaced as part of your normal budget process. And I know that hasn't always been a priority, but I think that in these days, as you can see, you know, a power outage, a storm during a thing, having a secondary device and a way to get in can be the difference between being able to have a council meeting and not having a quorum in order to have one. So I think that's something that we should consider moving forward. And again, from my perspective, what I would just say is I'd like a chance to further sit down with you. I know Eric Hayden from my staff has done a lot of the initial work, but I'd like a chance to sit down with the council members and with your staffs to say, where else can we take you on this journey? And let's look for where those additional savings are. And I would like you guys to not focus just on savings in paper or going green, which is a good thing in its own. What I'd like to say is, how closer can we bring you to a faster process? How much better can we get information to you? How can we smooth the ability for you to make your decisions through the use of technology? And if we can do that, if we can help you become more effective in your daily work, then I think that's where the real savings is going to be. And unless you have any other that's my basic comments. If you need to dig in a little bit, let me know. If you'd like me to do a little bit more research for specifics, I can do that as well.
I thank you very much, Mr. Chair, if I may. Thank you very much for your answers to my questions. Yes, I understand we can't necessarily do away with paper. There are some people that are still old school, but in the future, we may be facing some emergencies. I don't know if they will be like COVID, but there is going to be a time when, yes, we will be apart from one another. And I feel that your team has really taken us the next step by offering iPads, computers, and the connectivity that we will need in case of another emergency. So again, I thank you very, very much. Mr. Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And quickly, you know, upgrading Sire and looking at, you know, a more modernized system, something that's more user-friendly and more efficient. I hear complaints about it all the time, so we could look at, you know, a new management system and of that caliber or better. I think Sire's a little outdated for our needs, but you know, you said a lot, you've answered a lot, you're making strides. I myself do not like to use paper. I do print up a calendar, I print up an agenda, but everything else I try to do digitally and electronically. Since I got elected in 2015, I brought my own iPad. I would pull stuff up from there. I'm just used to being on my phone and doing everything digital. So having said that, any other council members have any comments or questions on this item? Okay. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. We will go to new business. I believe that concludes the agenda. New business from council members. And I'm going to begin with Council Member Vieira. Council Member Vieira, do you have anything at the time, sir?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much. Just really quick, if I may, I was going to present the Tampa City Council commendation at a time to be determined, at a location to be determined, but not a person to be determined, because I will hereby specify Judge Greg Holder, who will be retiring in, I think it is like 90 days or something like that, for his years of service to Hillsborough County and to 13th Judicial Circuit as a judge. He's a great individual, and when I got sworn in December of 2016, I chose Judge Holder to swear me in because I think he's a good person. So I'd like to present a commendation at a time to be determined to this fine gentleman.
Second,
Right,
Citro.
We have a second from Councilmember Citro. Is there any objection to this? I hear none. By unanimous consent. You got it, sir. Approved. Thank you very much. Anything else?
No, nothing else, Mr. Chair. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Goods.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, again for your leadership today. Just a couple. I've been contacted by Mr. Joseph Johnson, the chair of the Budget Advisory Committee. He's requesting to come back before City Council to address questions raised during the Budget Advisory Committee's presentation last week. I move the City Council add him to the agenda for next Thursday morning, September 3rd, after public comment. It should take no more than 15 minutes, sir.
Second.
All right. We have a second from Councilmember Miranda. Is there any objection to this?
Yeah, that's from them.
By unanimous consent, we approve that. All right. What else, sir?
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion for discussion on the Chief Diversity Officer position from Chief of Staff Office to appear on 9/3/2020, sir.
Second, Citro.
Say that date again, sir.
September 3rd, sir.
September 3rd. All right. Do we have a second? I heard Citro. Actually, could we move it a little bit later? That's a very busy day meeting, and then we have the budget public hearing that night. Is there any way to push it back to perhaps the 17th of September? That's another regular council meeting.
I can. I was trying to push it for the so it wouldn't be a budget issue because the Chief of Staff and I had conversations, so we wanted to kind of talk about it so it wouldn't be a budget concern coming up. That's why I put it for the 3rd. But I think the second hearing for the budget is on the 17th evening.
The second hearing is the 16th, so it'll be the day before. All right, if you want to do September 3rd, considering the circumstance of the budget, I heard a second from Councilman Miranda, I believe.
Citro.
Oh, Citro. All right, a second from Councilmember Citro. Is there any objection or opposition to this? Hearing none, by unanimous consent, we approve that. Anything else, sir?
I have one last one that's very dear to me, Mr. Chairman. Last week, I sent out some information to all council members and to the staff and to the clerk's office. I'd like to make a motion to add the racial reconciliation resolution to the September 3rd regular meeting agenda for city council consideration and vote. If that date is an issue, we'll look into moving it if that's an issue, sir.
Did you said September 3rd, you said, sir?
Correct.
All right, it's a very, very busy day. Is there a second to that or any discussion?
Could he repeat the motion? I missed it.
Go ahead, Councilman Goods, if you could repeat the motion.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to add the racial reconciliation resolution to the September 3rd regular scheduled agenda for city council consideration and vote.
Second.
Councilman Dingfelder, I heard an
I'm good, thank you.
That was Vieira. I was about ready to second, and I think Councilman Miranda did. Thank you, sir. That was
All
my
right, so we have from Councilmember Good, second from Councilman Miranda. Any objection to this motion? Any discussion? Hearing none, by unanimous consent, this is approved. Anything else, Councilman Good?
I told you.
Thank you, and thank you, and I definitely appreciate the last vote on the last motion that was made, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Dingfelder.
I'm good today, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Carlson.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have two conflict forms that I have filed with the clerk's office. And so I just need approval of that, I think by unanimous consent, please.
Do we have any objection to that?
To receive and file.
Can we get a motion to receive and file those documents?
So moved. Citro.
From Councilman Citro, any objection? Oh, all right. By unanimous consent, we're good. Councilman Carlson, anything else?
Yeah, just one more comment, weigh in on the virtual conversation a few minutes ago. I prefer electronic communication and participation as well. So I appreciate everything the technology department is doing to lead us that way. It's been great not having to print paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilman Citro.
I never printed anything anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have just one item. Per the request of the Planning Commission, I move to reschedule a plan amending adoption hearing for TACP 19-18 AG and TACPA 19-21 from September 24th, 2020 to October 22nd, 2020, and direct legal department to provide the city clerk with the form of notice for advertising the public hearings.
Do we have a second to this motion?
Second.
Second from Councilman Goods. Any objection? Any discussion? By unanimous consent, that is approved. Anything else, sir?
Nothing more, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilman Miranda.
Thank you much, Mr. Chairman. Permission to make accommodation for retirement, who's leaving the great city of Tampa on October the 2nd, for Debbie Rotolo, who's been here for some period of time, has done an excellent job.
Second, Citro.
Do we have a second from Councilman Citro? Any objection?
No objection,
Hearing none,
Mr. Chairman. No objection, Mr. Chairman, but I just wanted to chime in case Debbie or John Bennett are listening. Unfortunately, with COVID, we won't be able to see Debbie and give her the commendation personally, but I know we all want to wish her well. Somehow or another, I think she wrote me the other day that she's been at this for 42 years, which means that she must have started when she was 10. And but anyway, she's an amazing person. She's been an amazing asset to our city, and she's a wonderful human being. We're going to miss her badly.
Thank you very much. Those are very, very kind words. And I believe she's a Tampa Catholic Crusader, as am I, and a beloved member of the City of Tampa family for many, many years. I hesitantly say yes to this motion because we never want to see anyone like her go. But you know, this is life, and we appreciate her service to this city for many, many years. Is there any objection to the motion? All right, hearing none, by unanimous consent, motion is passed. Is there anything else?
Mr.
I hear
Chairman,
nothing
Martin Shelby, Mr. Chairman, Martin Shelby, very briefly.
Yes,
Just want to follow up, or we could wait till next week when Mr. Johnson comes in from the Budget Advisory Committee. But Councilman Goods asked the question about having quarterly meetings, and I've researched the resolutions regarding the Budget Advisory Committee, and there's nothing that prevents that, and working with the administration to set up its own schedule. So we can talk about it next week, or that's take it from there. Thank you.
thank you very much, sir. I have nothing. We will meet this evening virtually at 5:01 p.m.
I haven't finished. I had another, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. You know, I've never had a P card issued to me because I never wanted one. And and I'm not even sure about all this, under the Mayor Greco, Mayor Aureo, Mayor Buckhorn, and now Mayor Castor, I don't believe I've ever had a P card. I'm asking the administration to check on that, see if I've ever spent any of that money. And I'm not certainly going to ask for that money now, but I like to, and the reason I haven't asked the legal department or I haven't asked the administration about these discussions, because I don't know the answer. But I want to know if it's legal, since I don't have a P card, to put my same amount of money that every other member has, about $2,900 a year or something like that, for expenses coming out where you have to go somewhere and spend your own money. Not that you had to go because you're a city council member and you should go. And I wondered if I could ask this administration through the council to permit to, if it's possible, legally possible, to put that money, then what I heard today, they had the One Tampa 501c3 to affordable housing. That money's going to stay somewhere, and I like to direct it to affordable housing. So if this council lets me and this administration approves to let that money that I should get every $2,900 a year or $241 a month, whatever it comes to put that for my remaining time that I have on this council, and from the time I got elected in this election, if they would go back a year and a half, so I could have some money given to people who need it.
Do we need an official motion on that, or is that just a request of the administration?
Well, I like to request administration. I don't know if it's legally possible.
Mr. Shelby, your thoughts?
Mr. Miranda, would you like a report in writing to you about this issue?
Yeah, I would like the city attorney to write on it, because I'm going to go through the administration with it. No reflection on you, Marty, but I don't know what in fact, I'm willing to even pay the tax on the money, even though I'm not going to get it. If they would put it in that account, I'm not trying to bypass a taxing area, but if that money I'm entitled to, I don't want it, and I want to give it away to affordable housing. If I could do that, and maybe some other members of council would like to join me in some aspects to any amount, and or maybe some city employees or some city unions would like to get involved and put a pot of money to build one house.
All right,
Mr. Miranda,
Mr. Chairman,
this is Morris
Mr.
Massey, and
Chairman.
we'll look into that.
Hold on, Morris Massey, then Martin Shelby.
Hi, we're trying to get out of here.
Hi, Morris Massey, City Attorney's Office. I'll have to look into that, Mr. Miranda, and make sure that if that's appropriate, or how we could do that in a way that works.
That's what I brought it up for. That's all I wanted to know.
Let me go back and chat with some folks here and with the administration to make sure that can be done in the manner you're talking about, and if it can't, if we can come up with another means to make it happen. So
I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
How much time do you need on that if you want to do a written report, Mr. Massey?
If I could come back in 30 days, it may take less than that, but I need to make a couple of inquiries. Okay, great.
That's fine. Let's say let's start October 1st. That's a regular council meeting. That's just over 30 days. How about that?
That's perfect.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you.
Is that Councilman Carlson?
Yes, Ms. Miranda, I took inspiration from you a year ago, and I bought all my own furniture and paid for all my own supplies, and so I have money that I've been trying for several months to give to the public art department, because I also think that art and public art drive jobs, and they need more funding in that area. But Morris, I've had extensive conversations with the CFO, with the chief of staff, who's also spoken to the CFO about it. So you may get some information from there. But if you're going to go ahead and give clarification, I think Ms. Miranda's proposing giving it to a nonprofit. Mine would just go to a different department in the city.
No problem. Don't take.
There may be issues on how.
One at a time, please.
That's all right. Go on.
I was just saying there may be issues with how that is allocated and how that's done, and that's one of the reasons I do need to talk to the CFO, the chief of staff, to make sure that we can do it that way. I can think of a couple of issues potentially, but certainly these are laudable things that you all want to do, and so I will research it, and we will get back in touch with you, and we'll have a written report.
All right, that'll be October 1st. We have a motion from Councilman Miranda. Who was the second? Citro? Who was the second?
I'll second Mr. Brandon.
Second, Councilman Goods. Any objections to this motion? Hearing none. All right, passes by unanimous consent. Anything else, sir?
That's it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything? 5:01 p.m. this evening. Can I get a motion to receive and file?
Move to receive and file, Mr. Chairman.
All right, motion to receive and file from Councilman Miranda. Do we have a second? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Goods. Any objection? Hearing none, passed by unanimous consent. We are adjourned. Thank you. 5:01 p.m.